Okay, hello everyone.
Hello.
Hope you're all
Hello.
doing great today. And our guests this week are the fine gents from the Nth Level. How are you doing?
Yeah, very
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Thanks,
really
Karl.
good.
Cheers.
Okay, so what about we say hello to everyone in the chat and then you can start telling us about yourselves. All right, so
Yeah.
hi Charlene, hi Earthman Brick, hi Mia, hi Tina Martins, hi Loosely Collected, and I see Lawrence from Dirt Basement Terrain. Good evening, sir. Hope you're all doing great. So, would you like to tell us a bit about yourselves first, and then we can go into what the Nth Level is and work up from there?
Absolutely. Yeah. Who wants to take this one? Shall I?
Well, you've opened your mouth now, Lewis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you
have.
started.
I
That's
have.
how
I
it works.
have.
Yeah.
We can all hide now.
So, I guess in a nutshell, we have been playing games together for a few years. I'm the most recent addition, but we're all part of a games club in Cardiff, and we all live either in or close to Cardiff. We started playing a lot of historical war games, things like that, and then realised that there were ideas that we had that weren't represented in games, so we
Mhm.
just decided to start writing the sort of games that we wanted to play. So yeah, it's the four of us. How long have we been doing it now? It's
Playing games that we've written. Or, the nth
yeah,
level, the nth level we started in November of last year, but we've been playing games we've written for years and years and years.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that the whole thing came together as all good ideas do, which was over a drink,
Mm.
where the four of us finished playing at a game that I think Pete and Lewis had been tinkering with. They took an existing game, just added some rules, and then we got together. Each of us decided, I mentioned that we'd all been working on games. So Pete mentioned he'd been working on a game, I think over lockdown, that became Primordial Steel. I had been writing a game during lockdown, just on a whim, not even connected. And we thought, hey, why don't we just do that, write them and
do
actually
it
publish
do
them?
it
And
together, yeah.
we enjoy playing the games we've written. Why don't we offer those to other people as well?
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, that's it. It was quite interesting actually the way that we started out because yes, as Banks mentioned, Primordial Steel was the first full release we did, which was Pete's main project, and then we sort of helped with playtest and helped with a few bits and bobs. But it actually came out of me and Pete playing a rule set, a really popular free rule set, and then we decided to change it to 10 mil
Yeah, 10
instead
mil.
of 28 mil.
Okay.
And then there were a few rules that didn't work with 10 mil, so we changed those a bit. And by the time we got it to a place that we thought was good, it was pretty much a different game.
Yeah, completely different. Like all maths, all stats, everything had to be changed to make it work the way that we wanted it to work. And it was just a completely different thing.
Yeah, and we thought, well, we've rewritten most of the rules to make it work with 10 mil miniatures. Why don't we go the whole way and actually just make an entire new game out of it?
All right.
So yeah, that's the start of it.
So I did play a few games like just downscaling it so it's not just Primordial Steel. I just do it because space. But
Yeah,
Mm.
what
yeah.
kind of thing did you have a problem with when you were downsizing this rule set?
With the game that we were playing, because it was built for 28 mil, it was making an assumption that, like, a regiment of guys was 20 guys and they were one wound each. And when you play in 10 mil, you know that, like, even on like the same footprint, it's not
Ah, okay, of
it's
course.
not 20 guys. It's way more than that.
Mm.
And it felt really wrong just from like a theme perspective to be a single base of like 16 men was a wound. It didn't feel right. And then we ended up having to change like the maths and number of attacks and how then ranks worked, because you couldn't do 4 ranks, because 4 ranks of 10 mil guys is far too many guys to build and
Paint.
paint. Yeah, it is. So it kind
I
of
don't,
just
I don't remember you guys ever painting any of those models.
no, I
Well,
didn't.
behave yourself now.
I did a couple. But yeah. So and then part of it was the theme of it as well, because we were doing 10 mil. 10 mil, it's very easy to get historical models more than it is fantasy models. They exist, but a lot of them are tailored towards no longer in print war game from a popular games company that may or may not have the words master and war in the title. So it was easier for us to pick up historical models and then kind of mythological units to add to those historical models to make a cohesive faction. And that was the foundation of what became the kind of lore and background of Primordial Steel. I mean, we do have some advantages there. My day job is I write and publish novels.
Oh, nice.
So the publication side of doing this was something I was already doing. I already run a publishing company. So I had that skill set that we could then use towards all of our kind of tabletop games and things like that. And that's kind of like why the setting of Primordial Steel is the way it is, the different factions, and they're all mythologically based with a couple of the fantasy ones in there, because it kind of sprung from that. And then eventually became like Primordial Steel is written for 28 mil, although you can scale down any 28 mil game by just changing all the inches to centimeters. Just do that. It's fine. It's not a problem.
Or scale them up to feet if you want to do really big models.
Yeah, if you want to just play it by yourself.
Play it 1-to-1. the way we play tested it, yeah. So, big cardboard cutouts we definitely.
I guess we did have another challenge with regards to scaling, which was one of the tenets that we've got when it comes to designing minis is that we don't expect everybody to necessarily have a 6x4 foot table anymore. And although you can certainly play our games at that kind of scale, we're trying to write rule sets with sort of scale and space in mind. So even a lot of our full-size games, you'll already notice, so we've got it with Primordial Steel, we've got it with Core as well, that we're trying to kind of contain them to a 4 foot by 4 foot area. And a lot of our missions are written, the measurements are done in such a way that if you had a coffee table or a 3 foot area or a 6 foot area, that it will work and it will scale up nicely to any size. But there is a challenge there in that we were trying to write everything with that in mind. And it's really important to us that you're able to play your game on no matter where you've got it. If it's the floor of a living room in a flat or a small coffee table, that was quite important to us as well. And that's something that we continuing to think about as we're developing things going forward as well. That's not to say that all of our games are limited to a 3x3 or a 4x4 foot. We have got a few in the works that we know are they have to be on a slightly bigger scale just because of the nature of the game. But that is something that's always kind of on our minds.
Yeah, that's very much appreciated because not everyone has space for an 8x6 foot table. It's it's pretty tricky to get that in a flat these days.
We're very blessed in South Wales that we have access to a local game store which has hundreds of 6x4 foot tables and a wealth of terrain. But we very much appreciate that we're quite unique in that regard. Not everybody has access to a gaming store like that. Sure. Your local gaming circle might be 3 neighbors who live 20-30 minute drive away, and your gaming venue is your dining room table on a Saturday once a month. And so it's important for us to think about that as well. We want you to be able to play this no matter what your situation is. That ties in with our model agnosticism as well. We don't expect you to be able to buy a £50 box of miniatures that will cover a quarter of your army. That kind of the ability to play in whatever space you've got with whatever mini you want is absolutely the most important thing for us. And we hope that comes across.
Yeah, I mean, the vibe I get is a lot like when I started playing way back in the 90s, and you use whatever figures you have at hand. You don't have to have this particular model from this manufacturer, otherwise you can't play. Or the rules are very hackable, so it's like again, it's something that I noticed with a lot of newer players, especially. It's like the rules are the rules are the rules. You do not change the rules. It's like, why? I mean, it's not like the rules police are going to come for you or something. So yeah. Definitely the vibe is in there.
Yeah, that's it. I think because for the 4 of us, we're actually into this hobby for different reasons. Both me and Banks absolutely love making things out of whatever we have lying around. Ollie is a fantastic painter, so we'll buy miniatures for the painting, and also an award-winning miniatures painter. I should add.
Thank you.
As well. And then Pete, for example, I hope you don't mind me saying, Pete, because it's true, is that he will buy any rule book that looks interesting and he will read through it for fun, even if he doesn't intend to play the game. But usually he does.
He always intends to play the game, just we can't be bothered.
It's that we have so many games that we play between us that we never get around to them all. And so what I think we've come to the nth level with is actually a few different things that we like. Ollie will buy a cool miniature, will enjoy painting it, and then might get an idea for a mechanic in a game based on that. Pete knows every game under the sun, and me and Banks will root through the rubbish to build an army. So we actually we combine those things into writing games for the nth level that mean you can do each of those things. You can create interesting narratives. You can build an army out of Lego if you really want to. And the games that we try to write have, we're sort of standing on the shoulders of giants when it comes to other games companies, because we've read what they're putting out, we've appreciated what they're putting out, and we are trying to fit our own games into areas that other companies might have missed, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, looking at Primordial Steel, for example, there were two things I really liked about the rules. One of them was, from a mechanical perspective, was how easy maneuvering is. Because if you take another game, like you can you can move one unit once a turn. You can't really maneuver with that. You can just maybe go in a straight line and turn a little. It's not very flexible. So
Yeah.
I really like that the ability to form complex movements in there. And the other thing was the way that terrain was built into some of the factions. Okay, that one I really liked. I mean, I would like to see much more of that in the future.
I agree with that. I'm not surprised that that's something that you've picked up on as something interesting, because it fits into what you do with your channel. You know, it provides an opportunity to actually build a terrain piece that you take around with your army. I was supposed to make some ice walls and some sand dunes for Pete, and I still haven't done that, so sorry about that. I'll get on with that at some point, I swear.
Okay, speaking of crafts and terrain, before I forget, I'm just going to drop the link to the community showcase on Discord in the chat, so if anyone has built anything that they want to show off on the stream later, they can just put it in the community showcase.
Very good.
Okay, but back to your games. I know that you've just released Core, which is a mech wargame. You've also got, I think, Shitty Technicals, if I'm not mistaken, and a game with tanks, but I forgot the name right now. So why don't you tell me a bit more about those? Second, sorry?
Tank Duel Arcade.
Tank Duel Arcade, all right.
There you go.
Yeah. A quick point I think about some of the ones that you've mentioned is that we have quite large games that we write and release, like Primordial Steel, like Core. They are games to sink your teeth into. You know, it's something that you can spend an hour or two, or in the case of Core, actually, you can run through it very, very quickly. But they're larger games. And then on the other hand, we have what we like to call our micro games, and that is Shitty Technicals, which I absolutely love, Tank Duel Arcade, which I think I love even more. Depth Charge has been released as well. Okay. And so these are the sort of games where you can pick them up for, you know, a few dollars, a few pounds, a few euros, and I think is it $5 where the micro games are, or $4.99?
I think they're $3.99.
Oh, even $3.99.
They are, yeah. But you can also, if you're a Patreon member, you get all of the micro games as part of that as well.
Okay.
And
Go get the plug in.
yeah, and so those are games that maybe will take you 20 minutes. And so if you've got your lunch break or something, and you want to get a really quick game in, that's a one that you can do in your lunch break while also having time for your lunch as well. Yeah, so that's really good, I think.
Definitely, and I touched on it earlier with regards to things like space and miniatures, but the micro games really kind of exaggerate that. They really are made to be played in about a half an hour. The space doesn't even matter how much you've got, honestly, and it almost doesn't even really matter if you've got the right miniatures, although it definitely looks better with shitty technicals if you do have maybe little popularly branded cars,
like matchbook
which
stuff and things like that. Yeah.
Very
exactly.
warm cars. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but they definitely kind of exacerbate that even more. Quite often we find if we're playtesting a game or something like that of an evening at our local hobby store, and we've got sort of 20 minutes or half an hour to go, or we just need to kind of reset our batteries almost in between playing another game, we'll play a quick micro game, because they're probably the most fun. If you even remotely like rolling dice, they're probably the most fun you can have in about 15 or 20 minutes. Tank Duel Arcade is, I think, one of the best games I've ever played. I'm obviously a little bit biased, although I didn't write it. I will stress that. But it's phenomenal, and you can play the whole game in about 20 minutes with one mini. That's great. Really, really enjoy it. I've actually got my Tank Duel Arcade mini next to me, funnily enough. But I won't show it off.
Yeah, and it's something, this is a totally different topic that maybe we'll talk about later, but 3D printing is a massive thing for tabletop games now. And what I really love about writing games in general, but particularly writing these micro games where the rule book is maybe 10 pages, 15 pages. It doesn't take a long time to read. For Tank Duel Arcade, which is one that I love as well, I've got a FDM 3D printer, so it's not the sort of quality for doing sort of humanoid figures, but I printed a tank on there recently. I printed a T-34, and it took me 6 hours maybe to print it, and then I've got a whole new mini to play this game with. And so I think that 3D printers and the fact that a lot of people have 3D printers has made our lives so much easier in terms of writing games.
Yeah, I can see how that would happen because, like we're saying, you don't always need to have the exact miniature, but having the right miniatures does help immersion. Especially if you're showing the game to someone new or you're running a demo game or something, that does help a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will happily play with pieces of paper or pieces of card, it doesn't matter, but getting someone on board is like, but if you show them miniatures, they'll be like, oh, okay, I can do that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Well, yeah, I went out and bought, didn't I? Essentially an army for every Primordial Steel faction, so we could get people to blind play test it with us, because it's a lot easier when you go, look at these armies. Do you want to play one of them? Than it is to look at these random assortment of different miniatures that don't match. Do you want to play? So I literally went out and did that specifically because I knew it would bring people in to do the testing for it.
That makes sense. I mean, the beer can Minotaur doesn't really sell the game.
No.
Absolutely.
No. A lot of our games definitely start that way, though. I think when we're still sort of testing them out. I remember for quite a while when working on core, certainly when I was sort of play testing at my home, that I would use sort of little sort of tubs or sort of takeaway containers or source containers. Oh, that'll do. That's probably about the size of a mech. I'm sure that's fine.
Yeah, that works.
And then move it around. But Pete's absolutely right. Actually having something quite cohesive and on the table is really good, because it does draw and attract people in, I think, that much more. So if we're lucky enough to start doing events in the near future, or if you happen to be in South Wales and you're seeing us on the gaming table, I'm sure you'd see some nice minis as a part of that for sure. And terrain, of course. Lots of nice terrain.
Yeah, that's it. That's the reason that we like terrain building, is because we want to have a game that has real immersion in it. So having decent painted minis is exactly the same. It's for exactly the same reason as having a nice board.
In fact, the whole reason that core is written, and again, it's not a stickler for scale. You can play it in any scale you like, but in the rule book, which you can also get, it's also mentioned in the free version, which you can download from Wargames Vault on our website. There's another shameless plug for you. The reason that it's written in 10 mil scale or 1/44 scale is because that is just a popular scale. It's very easy to purchase a lot of terrain kits, things like sort of near future or even modern day sort of build-ins. You get a lot of MDF kits are available in the 10 mil scale. A lot of 10 mil scale stuff happens to be what popular Japanese manufacturers make scale model kits at as well. So it's quite easy to throw stuff together for that. And the same is true for our other projects that are kind of in the pipeline as well, is that a huge portion of why we're doing it the way we're doing it is just because it's easy and cheap for people to pick up these things and get into playing the games.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's see, loosely collected is saying, my FDM is printing frames that I can use to hold all of my Atari to 2600 cartridges. Oof. That's some vintage stuff there.
That's the kind of thing that 3D printer was made for, wasn't it? Just the more bespoke stuff.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. Very off topic, but I had a problem with my car where a hatch had gone, and this car hasn't been made in about 15 or 16 years. So I just had one 3D printed by a friend, and it works perfectly. So it works in all hobbies, not just ours.
Yeah.
Okay, and Tina Martins is laughing at trinkets. Yeah, I agree. It's like I guess they're useful to have, but I just prefer to build stuff up from scratch myself.
Yeah. Absolutely agree.
But
Definitely. I've although I mentioned terrain kits, I've definitely bought quite a few for 10 mil. I actually have scratch built an awful lot of stuff for core. Some of it I'm hoping that we'll get to see maybe in the coming months. We can certainly get some pictures on that on social media, and I think I'll even share it on the community Discord for yourselves as well.
Awesome.
But I'm hoping to make a diorama soon, which will kind of help us show off core in a quite small space we could pop on the table for sort of demonstration purposes, I guess, when we're attending events. And what I've done so far, I don't know if I'm going to get it to work on camera, but I've been scratch building. We'll give this a go. We'll see if it translates well over the stream. But we've got, let me try and unblur my background a moment.
Let me see if I can get you zoomed in closer.
Engineering, live engineering. Thank you
Technology.
very much. There you go.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of examples to hand of again. So core, I've kind of written it with 10 mil in mind. You can kind of, again, you play at any scale you like. It depends on what you've got. But we're trying to kind of have a visual appeal with it. And so a lot of the minis I've been working on, I've been making them in 10 mil urban bases that match, kind of like a modern day sort of vibe. So if we look at this one here, I hope this comes across well over the camera. But you can see there, I've got sort of asphalt bases, concrete sort of slabs on the side there, and various sort of city pieces. These are still very much a work in progress. Something I'll be working on next are sort of some small street signs, like a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, no parking, little sort of traffic signs you get on the side. Some rubbish bags. I've got a few examples though next to me. These are very much a work in progress, but they've been really, really good fun so far. I've got little sort of planters and things I've been working on there for some trees.
Nice. Basically, you've got a little diorama on a base.
Yeah, and that's kind of, Lewis kind of touched on it earlier, but that is something that I've always really enjoyed about minis, is that kind of creative process. And it's something I talk about quite a lot in core. We got another one with a little car on it and a sort of little highway line. That's part of the process for me, and I mentioned that quite a bit in the core book, in that we recommend you use bases for minis in the game. You don't have to, but if you do, here are some fun things you can do with them.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I've kind of gone with this urban theme for now because I've got a lot of sort of bits of terrain knocking about. Some I've bought, some I've built. But I mean, you could do anything with it, and I'd love to see what people do with it in the future. For anyone that's picked up the game so far and is maybe working on some bases, I hope you've done some cool things, like ice worlds, desert worlds, anything like that. That'd be great. I'd love to see it.
In core, does the base height make a difference? Because I know that, for example, in in 40k, the height of the model is represented by the base. So if you can see the model, you can target it. Is it the same in core, or can you just make this humongous vertical base and you know?
That is a great question. Height actually doesn't matter in core. One of the reasons for that is purely for simplicity, and the kind of scale that I've kind of imagined in this is that, you know, not an awful lot is really blocking shots to a mech. Terrain does matter a lot in terms of game mechanics and bonuses to being hit, but the rules itself, verticality almost doesn't matter. When it comes to working out things like bonuses for terrain, you quite simply draw a straight line between the attacking model and the defending model, and if that line crosses anything, there will be some bonuses applied depending on what it's crossed. So it's quite simplistic, I hope, in that regard. Very much the kind of the design principle for core in general, to be honest, because it is aimed at people that maybe have a lot of model kits, like I've just shown off. There's a wonderful hobby out there with Gunpla and associated hobbies, where you build a lovely model, and when it's done, you don't really do anything with it. It may sit on your shelf, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But I was sort of, what if I could do something with them? What if I could play a fun game with them and roll some dice and see which one was the best? That's kind of where core came from.
Because those kits are mostly just display models, yeah.
Typically, yeah. A lot of the other hobbies out there, a lot of these kits are actually really dynamic. You can do an awful lot with them when it comes to posing and things. And quite often, if anybody out there is watching this stream and also has this hobby, you probably do what I do, which is every couple of weeks you change the pose a bit. You make a few pew pew, you make a few little pew pew noises, and then you put it back on the shelf.
Your girlfriend watches from the other room, very disappointed.
Well, yes, absolutely. She's my wife now, but yes, that's absolutely true.
Not that disappointed, then.
Yeah, but yeah, why not roll some dice with that as well? So that the game core was made to be simplistic. I didn't want too many things like true line of sight and too many things to worry about, like tracking ammunition and whether the shots hit the arm or the leg. Or the core is meant to be maybe even aimed at people that aren't necessarily avid wargamers. Maybe they just like building model kits, and so that kind of simplistic version of core is something that you can play in about 20 minutes to half an hour. It's a very, very quick game. You can then, if you want to, add a bit more complexity to it by kind of scaling it up a bit more to being a bit more like a full war game. So where maybe you've not just got one or two mechs aside, but you've got some fun little things. Like I've got little tiny 10 mil infantry bases. I hope these come across well over camera as well. Oh, there you go. So you can also represent little squads of infantry, tanks, and gunships and things like that. Add like an extra bit of tactical depth to core. Again, I've tried to make that as simple and seamless as possible. But that layer is there. If you want something a bit more than just a 20-minute or a half an hour game, and you want to get something a bit more meaty to get your teeth into, you can do that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about before I read the actual rules was that why would someone who already plays, say, MechWarrior or BattleTech get into that? And I think there are games designed for very different, not necessarily audiences, but let's say that you're a really serious MechWarrior fan, and we want to fit. You're not going to fit a game of MechWarrior in an hour. That does not happen.
Definitely not.
No.
Quite a few of us.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Quite a few of us are into BattleTech, and some of us are resisting the urge until some of the new drops come along. But yeah, you're right. They're very different games. I think BattleTech absolutely has a place. If you've got sort of 2 or 3 hours and you want to have a small squad of dudes, maybe some supporting infantry and tanks and things like that, and you want to have that kind of 3-hour game where, oh, my arm's been blown off and I haven't, I've run out of ammo for my. That's amazing. That's really cool. But it was very much kind of I wanted a more zoomed in game with core. I wanted the mechs to really be the star of the show. You can have like 1 or 2, 3 maybe at most in an average game of core, but I want them to really be the star of the show. In core, for anyone that's read the free copy, you'll notice that terrain is removed all the time in a game of core. You're smashing through buildings, you're smashing through all kinds of stuff, and it's dynamically changing the game as you play it. And that is the kind of thing you don't get from BattleTech. BattleTech is that zoomed out management type thing. Whereas with core, I want like a bit more sort of drama where the mechs are just like gods of the battlefield. They're just it's and I hope that comes across well in the game. That's not to say there isn't like a lot of resource management in there. I think things like the energy mechanic in the game work quite well. It allows you to do some really cool things. I always said to the guys when we were playtesting it that in core, ironically, my key design principle was that I didn't want the player to be able to do everything they wanted. So if in a turn you wanted to move your mech, fire 3 of your guns, have a bit of energy to use your shield generator when shots come back at you, and spend your energy on claiming some points for the objective, I don't want you to do all of that. I want you as a player to sweat a little bit and think, maybe I can only do 2 or 3 of those 4 things. And so there's definitely an element of resource management in there, but it is not to the level that you get with BattleTech. And again, my hope is that it gets people that own these scale model kits maybe thinking about a fun bit of terrain base to mount them on, and thinking about playing them in games of core.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, go on. If you're gonna go, Karl.
I was reading here, Questboard Terrain is saying, I've only played RPGs, not war games. This looks like a possible gateway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is great about it, in fact, the thing that I enjoy the most is the fact that when we play the game, it's very heavy with terrain. So lots of 10 mil buildings, apartment blocks, things like that.
I think we have some images of that, if I'm not mistaken, yeah?
Yes,
there we
we've
go.
got some images of a game that we've played. And so it's very dense terrain. And then you can just stomp on those buildings. You know, if you move one of your mechs and you end on the building, that building is then destroyed and it's removed from the game. And I think for people who love building terrain, it actually gives you an opportunity for making really nice apartment blocks, things like that. And then also building the sort of ruins. So a mech can go on, stamp on it, and then move away again. And you can then take you can take the original building off the board and put one of the ruins on, and it looks so good. It's so satisfying.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's not something that I see in war games much. It's like if a piece of terrain is there, it's there and it stays there. But you know, the ability to destroy stuff in game is always a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I hope it comes across that I enjoy terrain and not that I hate it, by that I've built a mechanic that lets you destroy terrain. But this picture is a good example. It is several turns in one of our earlier test games, but it is quite interactive in that regard. It's very quick and it's very interactive, and I really like that. So if you are kind of an RPG gaming background, I think this is a pretty good one to get into. So inside of the book, I'll hold this up quickly for my camera.
Okay, 1 sec.
No problem. So inside of the book, one of the things that we've got are these lovely guys, which are stat cards. I'm going to put my hand to the back of it there. You have to ignore my terrible handwriting. But one of the core tenets of I did it again. One of the key tenets of the game is to design your own mech. So if you've only got that one mini, and your mini that you've built because you love the model of it when you were growing up had some big rocket launchers or something on it, then we want you to represent that in the game. But there's a really big slot at the top of the card there for name, mech name. This is a card for Big Blue, which is the blue miniature we looked at earlier.
All right.
Yeah. So if you've got 2 mechs on the team, you want to know which card belongs to which one. Give them a cool little name and write down some of the stats maybe they've got on your slot over here. And kind of go with it from that. So I'm of that opinion as well. I kind of have a love for narrative gaming. And I've done quite a lot of RPG stuff in the past as well. And so I like that aspect of it. It feels quite characterful. I've built a mech in specifically the way I wanted to. Maybe I've paid more points to make it a more skillful pilot that's using that mech. And so why not represent
the
it?
pilot skill as well, yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The whole game is around sort of the skill of the pilots involved. So in your lovely image there, we've got a few bases of infantry as well. These are always treated as being, oh, that's perfect. Look at that. So they're always treated as being skill 1. That just represents like sort of your average human. Whereas the mechs, there's a pilot in the mech. It's got all sort of sophisticated AI and things that's driving it. And so that mech is typically a lot higher. But that skill, what all this translates to is how the game fundamentally works. If you've got a higher skill, you move later than units of a lower skill. And so you're able to position yourself better on the battlefield. When it comes to the combat phase, the higher skill units shoot first. They almost dictate the play of the game. And so you can create really characterful forces. You could have one mech with a high skill that's got all of the armament under the sun and just like a couple of squads of guys. Or maybe you'll have like not many supporting forces at all. Maybe you've got 2 or 3 mechs that are their skills okay, but they've got a lot of really good kit on them. But you've got more mechs, so you're able to maybe dictate the flow of the battlefield or whatever. So while it is a simple game, I think there's a lot of elements of hopefully there's sort of like a easy to pick up, kind of difficult to master type thing, or at least challenging to master. There's a heck of a lot of depth to it that, to be honest, we're still discovering as well. I've played dozens of games of this, and there's still clever little things I've not thought about before cropping up. There's
simplicity is an art form. It's from what I've learned over time is that a complex rule set makes a very impressive rule book, but simple rules are the games with simple rules are the ones that are really enjoyable to play.
That's hit the nail on the head for me.
There's a reason chess has been around for 3,000 years or whatever.
Yeah. How many pages? How many pages does the chess rule book have? How many?
Yeah,
How
well,
many
Probably quite big, to be fair.
It's an FAQ out next week, so we'll check that out.
Yeah, I don't think it's had an errata every 12 months though. Maybe it has. Maybe there's a lesson for us to follow there. But yeah. So I mentioned the customization earlier in Core, and I think it's a good time to elaborate on that, particularly for people that have that kind of RPG gaming background. Is that there's a variety of ways to customize your mech. So broadly speaking, we've put them into these loose categories of light, medium, and heavy mechs. But all that really translates to is sort of how fast that mech is and how many hit points that mech has, and how many upgrades it's able to kind of bolt onto it, if you like. So as an example, a light mech can have 4 upgrades, whereas a heavy mech can have 6. So there's a capacity to put more points into it and put bigger and more impressive things in there. But I think in the core rulebook, there are just shy of 50 upgrades to choose from.
Ooh.
So when I say an upgrade, that means ranged weapons, close combat weapons, and other cool sort of support systems like shield generators and flares and all that sort of thing. So there's quite a lot of combinations and permutations you can create there. There's also nothing stopping you taking multiples of the same one. So I've played a game before where I built a mech with a couple of basic ranged weapons and then 2 swords to beam sabers, which are very impressive swords, and just ran around and stabbed everything, and that was great fun. So there's an awful lot of kind of that RPG element is definitely present in this game to an extent, and I hope that's come across well because that was my intention.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was thinking about is how you need to balance your max energy budget against the equipment you're bolting on, because it's easy to put on, yes, I shall have one of the big guns, and then I shall have 2 bigger guns, and then I shall have an even bigger gun, but you've only got so much energy to go around.
Absolutely. And while you'll get a certain amount of energy per turn, you're guaranteed it. It is a dice roll. So we'll take what have I got here? I've got a medium mech as an example for me. So every turn when you're rolling up your little energy pool is a d6 plus 3. So you could get 4 energy. You could get 9. And so you do have to be conscious sometimes of how much am I going to bolt on this. I've tried quite a few lists where I've got sort of light mechs, which aren't typically very good at energy generation, with whopping great big weapons on them. And maybe accepting that I don't get to fire my massive, awesome cannon every turn. Maybe I have to fire it every other turn. Maybe if I need it to do something in an emergency, like dash to an objective and put some energy into that, maybe I don't get to fire it for 3 turns. So there's almost a game in itself when you come to building your mech.
Yeah.
Even before the game actually begins.
Massive element of chance, isn't it?
I've kind of anticipated this would be a bit of a learning curve. So in the rulebook, which is also present in the free version, if anyone's interested, there are some pre-built mechs in there and a sort of a suggested mission to get you started. And generally, I would encourage people, if they're playing Core for the first time, to try that out first. It's not indicative of the full game. It's not going to give you like a full understanding of the strategy and the tactical depth to the game. But what it will give you an understanding of is just how those mechanics work in terms of the tabletop. And how the game feels and how shooting a mech feels and how running through a building and smashing it feels, because you've got to get a good grasp of that, I think, before you get into playing it in anger, because it's a bit different. I'd like to think Core's a little bit different from a lot of the stuff out there. It's like we said at the start of the show, we wanted to make the games that we've always wanted to play, but we've never been able to, and Core for me was that. I've never played a game where I can have one big stompy mech run around, and maybe you've got two stompy mechs, but my mech's better than yours, and let's have a big fight in 20 minutes. Nobody's done that, so I did it.
So, could we go over the process of how you went from, okay, I have this cool mech mini and I want to put it in a game? How that evolved into a rule set? How did you get from step 1 to step 2?
That was almost a flawless segue there. I just want to assure everybody that's watching that we didn't pre-plan this at all. That was that was a very good segue. I don't know, Pete, do you want to field this one? Because Primordial Steel was our first game. I think you've probably got a good grasp on this one.
It was more that the idea comes first. It's always, like I said, it's always a game that we ourselves want to play. And kind of everything kind of comes from Ollie mentioned it a lot when you're talking about core, like, you know, the feel of a game, a feel of going through a building, feel of doing this and that. And that's almost kind of you get this idea of what you want the game to feel like. And then you kind of design the mechanics then to enable that. A lot of times people will have like a mechanic first, but then it doesn't kind of fit the game that they want to put it into. It's more important to have, well, I want the game to be about this, and then I want the mechanics. So like Primordial Steel, for example, the idea of Primordial Steel is it's supposed to represent to an extent like the point where like these two forces have met, the battle lines have broken down, and now we're just in a melee, right? Like our units are split apart. There's even a mission which represents that, where like other parts of your battle line come in from the edge as you play on, right? So it's a case of like, I wanted to represent a melee where models are free flowing around each other. They are kind of swirling about. They're pinning in individual guys. They're trying to take out leaders. They're trying to kind of do certain things. And like the feel of it is like the way that the fatigue in the bag works. You know, you're taking the dice and you don't know who's going to activate, but you know the shifting of odds, and there's that decision like, do I want to go with these guys who I'll know will do something, but there's a chance I'll lose an ability to activate, which gives my opponent more chance to activate. It gives you the feel of kind of, Lewis said this before, but like we said that Primordial Steel was like every tabletop game turned up to 11. It was just constant, constant like stressful moments, which not quite what I meant, but it's literally the idea is it wanted to give you the feeling of, no, this is a tight life or death fight that we're trying to do right now. And I think that's the same with all games. You want to have what they want the end experience to feel like first, and then you design your mechanics to enable that. I think that's the way to look at it. It's so many times you kind of, it's interesting. A lot of big game companies try to lock you into their ecosystem, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just play Wargame X and you buy models from that same company, and you can only use them for that company, and you were in their ecosystem, and you know it turns out you hate the game and you've played it ages, but they're bringing out a new edition, and maybe this new edition will be different, but it never is, because it's just an excuse to reset it and sell more books. And it's like, I think
the thing with
people
that
need
to. Sorry, please go on.
Well, I'd say people. I think the big thing that it takes people a little time to realize this, and it tends to happen once someone comes out of the ecosystem, one of those big games, and they play some other games, they instantly play 50 million games, because you realize that your model collection, your miniatures, your terrain, that's not for one game. That's your, like in this scenario, your models, your terrain, that's just your Nintendo, right? Your Super Nintendo. And the rule sets are the cartridges that you plug into your Super Nintendo. And you don't just want to play Mario for your whole life. Sometimes you want to put Zelda in and play Zelda, but you're using the same stuff, using the same machine that drives that engine. And you know, you have, if you've got a big army for a existing popular war game, there are a bunch of rule sets out there, not even just ours. There are a bunch of rule sets out there. You can just play with those models, and maybe you'll like that game better, but you've still got the models. You know what I mean? It's the people like, I don't want to sit like the rest of my life and just play one war game the same way I don't want to sit and watch one film over and over and over. Sometimes I want a different experience.
Yes.
And I think different games and things provide that. And I think that's the thing, is the game is an experience. Kind of war games sprang from tabletop role-playing games, right? Very early editions of war games, early editions of BattleTech, early editions of 40k needed game masters because they were role-playing games in essence.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And when you sit down with an opponent to play a game of literally anything, you're both there to try and recreate this story, this moment. Even if you're playing, like I play a lot of games competitively, more so than the others here. I play like tournaments and things like that. But even at a tournament, you're still there to tell a story of this battle or whatever it is, right? And I think there's getting the feeling of what the story you and your opponent are trying to tell right is a really important thing. I think when you're making a game, I think that's the number one thing you're aiming for.
That definitely ties into the process, doesn't it? Which I think for us is a very iterative thing. To come back to your question, where Pete's absolutely right. We have a certain feel. We want something to feel a certain way. And we'll put minis down on a table and we'll try and just see if we can create that feeling, see if we can make sure that mechanic kind of behaves as the way it tends to. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Quite often it's a very iterative process. You might have a mechanic that you think you've worked out perfectly, and when you've kind of thought about it in a bigger picture and you've added in some other bits, maybe it doesn't work in the same way you've intended anymore. And so it's a very iterative process. Primordial Steel changed quite a lot during its development. My favorite mechanic in the game is fatigue. That idea of I've got a commander, I can actually activate him multiple times. And it's not like a traditional war game where I've gone with this one unit and I have to wait 20 minutes before I can use it again. I can, at a cost to myself, go with that guy again. There's a risk I'm then losing my order dice and I'm not putting it back in the bag anymore. But that risk and reward was something that we wanted to have in the game quite early on. And that was a mechanic that worked perfectly in early iterations of Primordial Steel. But when we came back to it later on, we realized actually it could be improved and refined even further. As an example, in the current version of the game, if a commander is heavily wounded, he's also not very good at giving out orders. It's not just about how many times you've gone with him this turn. It depends on how healthy he is or she is to enable them to give out those orders. Core was no exception. Energy was something I wanted from the beginning, but it quite quickly ran away from you. I think that idea of having enough energy to do everything you wanted quickly fell away. And so in that specific game, we introduced the movement cost stat. So if you want to move your mech, that's also going to cost you energy as well. And that tied into that key idea again, that key thought that we had going into the game, which is that I don't want you to have enough energy to do everything you want to do in one turn. You either save up to do that cool thing that you want to do, or you accept it. Maybe you can only do 2 of the 3 cool things you wanted to do. And so, yeah, it's a very iterative process. And for us, that often just means throwing stuff down on a table and rolling some dice and seeing if it works or if it doesn't, and writing down a lot of notes. An awful lot of notes.
Okay.
Yeah, and examining each other's games, I think, is the thing that I find most useful. Because when we're writing a game, one of us will have our own projects, and then the other 3 will play test and provide ideas, which I find massively useful. The thing that Ollie just mentioned, actually, with the having to use energy to move, that's the thing that has bitten me in the ass, because I always take heavy mechs with massive guns, and then I never have enough energy to shoot, which is...
Well, not all of them anyway. You should.
Yeah, indeed. Turns out that very expensive mechs with very expensive guns and my terrible luck when it comes to rolling for energy don't go together all that well.
Well, sometimes you need to. This is the risk and reward, isn't it? And again, this was the cool thing. When I sat down and I said I wanted to make this game, this is exactly the scenario I wanted to create. That if you want to have a big mech, if you want to have your cake, which is move your mech and shoot all your guns and put some points on an objective and have enough to be a bit defensive as well, you've got to save up to do that. And what Lewis often does is doesn't do that. He doesn't sit back and save up for a turn. He'll just move forward anyway and suffer the consequences.
I've paid for this big gun and I'm going to use it as much as I possibly can. And if that means that I never move on to an objective, well, I might lose, but I'm going to turn your mechs into fireworks before I lose.
I think the next time you and I play Core, I think we should be using some of the faction rules that are in the game. And I think you need to play as the outer colonial navy, because I think they lean into your playstyle quite nicely.
Yes, they probably do. They probably do. I might win then.
Well,
not go that far.
We'll have to see.
Yeah. It's interesting looking at all of our different play styles as well. And one of the things that I think is probably a bit of a challenge is to make sure that we don't just make games that lean into our individual play styles. Luckily, we're all quite different. But for me, if I didn't have, Banks, Ollie, and Pete to test my games, then I know that I would fall into the trap of making something that benefits my play style and not other people's.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah. So that's always the benefit of having a large playtest base, or at least some playtest, because you want multiple ways to play the game, and sometimes we do get stuck in
in sort of narrow thinking, and so I think playtesting is really, really useful for producing sort of decent finished products. And we are quite lucky in that, as we've said before, we have a very large games club very close to where we live, and we're part of a club, or I think some of us are part of more than one club, that have a lot of different people in them. And we have, when we've been playtesting our games, spoken to some of our friends who are not part of the Nth Level, but are part of the club, and will say, we'll buy you a beer, we'll buy you dinner, we'll pay for your ticket or something if you come down and do some blind playtesting for these games. And that is massively useful, I think, for the development of these games as well.
Definitely.
And also, to be able to have a chat with people like you, Karl, and to say, we've produced this thing, rip it to shreds.
Okay.
Have a look at have a look at it. Don't hold back, and to actually give it to people and sort of put ourselves out there, and have the risk of people actually ripping it to shreds. That's really useful for the design process, I think.
Yeah, I mean, what was the expression? Kill your darlings. That's
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask was, how do you choose, for example, the dice rolling system? Because Core uses dice pools, for example, and Primordial Steel uses scaling dice. If I remember, what's the term used?
Yeah. They upshift, so that you
Upshift,
go
yeah.
from D6s to D8s to D10s to D12s. Yeah.
So I mean, that's kind of the engine in that particular part of the game. So how do you pick one over there? Because I mean, let's put it this way, that some other well-known game publishers have been using the same system for all games, regardless of genre, for the last I want to say 40 years. So
Oh, I don't know who you're talking about, man.
yeah, I have no idea.
It's a great idea for a new system. It's going to be a hit roll, a wound roll, and then a save roll. I don't know if anybody's ever done that before, and it's going to be totally. Again, it kind of, I think, goes into where we're talking about the feeling of a game's important. Like Primordial Steel, the idea is these guys are in this life or death fight. They're always going to be like, rolling to hit is nonsense, because they're always going to be swinging their weapon to try and hit their opponent. Like, it's quite hard to miss someone at that close range, realistically. So the idea is, are they going to hit you hard enough to hurt you, or are they going to hit you hard enough to actually injure you? That's the mechanic there. The kind of upshifting mechanic came about because it works out quite nice mathematically for the way that the stats and defenses are set up, and it keeps defenses very simple. You just got two numbers, you roll the two dice, add any modifier you might have, off you go. But it's also quite satisfying to be like, well, this guy's got 2d6, but he's charged and he's got 2d8, and 2d8 are physically bigger dice a lot of the time. So it just feels better to roll like the bigger dice, the bigger things get. Oh, it's a mammoth, it's got d12s. It really sells, I think, when you're doing it, the impact, the attacks. That was my idea behind it. But again, the system that you use is about the feeling of a game. Like, we've got a game being worked on at the moment that's about like kind of company level sci-fi action. So very small scale stuff, kind of 6mm ish, very zoomed out. You've got an entire division of tanks, you've got platoon of infantry. That doesn't use any dice at all. That uses a deck of cards where you've got some control over what are essentially your rolls, or the numbers on the card.
Oh, okay.
Because you are the high general in command. You want to know, okay, I know this commando unit will do X, I know this unit will do Y. What are my odds of doing this? Again, it's all about the feeling that you've got when you're playing the game. Like I say, it's about the kind of the mechanics of it. How does it invoke the emotion that you want? I think that's why you end up with the whatever attack mechanic you've got or defense mechanic you've got. Does it feel right for the game that we're playing?
Okay,
That's a really good point. Yeah, I think particularly around complexity, because there's nothing new under the sun. But when it comes to creating a game, you don't want to have all of the cool mechanics of every game you've played in the last 10 years. You don't want this bit and this bit and this bit, because ultimately you'll create a very complicated product. I think, again, that iterative process, that kind of overall feel that we want, that might say, I would like a mechanic that does A, a mechanic that does B, and a mechanic that does C. So in that game, why would I also want D, E, F, G, right the way through to Z? For me, at least with core, like I could have had different dice. I could have borrowed Pete's idea of this gun feels more powerful. It's rolling D10s. It's more likely to do something than a D6. But there's already quite a lot going on there anyway with regards to the energy management in the game and the customization in the game. And so I think it's often about not making your games too complicated. You want them to be enjoyable at the end of the day. Primordial Steel is a very big rule book, but a lot of that is down to the faction choice,
Yeah, pretty much.
the units within those factions, and the lore.
And the scenarios,
Of course, yeah, and the missions there as well. The core rules of that game and the actions you can take is very small. It's only just it's a few pages, and so it's a very simplistic game that has a lot of high level interesting ideas in it. But you don't want all of the mechanics under the sun in that game. You want to invoke that feel that we had originally, and I think like the upshift in dice is the perfect example. I think of that in Primordial Steel. It's probably the most complicated element in the game, in terms of a man typically will roll a D6, but maybe something that's a bit more beastly might roll maybe a D8, or if you've got a charge off, you'll get a D8. But it really does have that feel that Pete wanted when he originally came up with the game. Invokes it perfectly. It's a great little system. That you got Pete's lovely mammoth miniature on screen there. What does the mammoth roll, Pete, when it attacks?
I think I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's from making so many games you forget all the stats. I think it's D10s, but it goes to D12s if it charges, like everything else does. And then the mammoth ignores like armor and things like that because it's just massive. It doesn't care.
Okay, one thing, for example, is that I noticed that Primordial Steel, for example, uses a lot of so not uses a lot. It has the concept of giving orders and having specific orders, whereas core is like, okay, it's your turn, you move the thing. So again, is this something where you were trying to portray, okay, this is an ancient army with a commander who's giving orders and stuff like that, while
yeah, exactly.
everything is pew pew and shootings.
Yeah, it's exactly it. Yeah, like you essentially in Primordial Steel, you are controlling those commanders, and then they give out the orders to the men, like it is in kind of all the things. Whereas obviously in core, it's individual pilots who are highly trained and skilled individuals making their own decisions. So you just do each one as which. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's to do the idea of, well, I am commanding this force. They are being ordered about by kind of heroes and characters and that kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Some
great.
of the art for I think.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, these are some of the bits of the art in the rule book there.
And some of the title pages for some of the micro games as well.
Yeah, I think this
Which,
one.
Oh yeah,
I've seen, yeah, indeed. So the Tank Duel Arcade one. This is one,
cover, isn't it?
it is a good cover. This is one that we almost default to, I think, when we've, as Ollie said before, we've just played a massive game of something that requires a lot of thought. And we think, right, well, somebody else is turning up in half an hour, and let's fill that half an hour, and so we'll play a game of this, and it's just proper fun. It's really, really good and very simple.
I think it really does steer into what Pete mentioned earlier, which again, that models agnostic approach that we take is super important to us. So when I play Tank Duel Arcade, I think I've got it next to me. I'm going to show it off. I have a Tiger model that I use. This is a 1/58 scale. So it's close to 28 mil, something you typically see in bolt action. But I can play many game systems with this. It's something that I have to hand that I could play with Tank Duel Arcades, but Tank Duel Arcade is written in such a way that you can use whatever you want. If you've got a 1/72 scale model of a Tamiya Leopard 2, you could use that if you want. You could even play it at 135. You could even play it with die-cast metal tanks if you like, that you've bought from a shop. Really doesn't matter.
You know, one thing I really like about Discover is that it's really, how do I put it? It's non-intimidating. You could give this to someone who has never played a wargame before and recognize it as a game.
Yes.
Whereas
Absolutely.
if you've
Straight
got
away.
something like, I don't know, the typical boxes with covers on them and stuff like that, it's like, what is this?
Yeah, I'm very guilty of that. Core has a very minimal cover. I wanted it to be quite artsy fartsy, but certainly with I think a lot of the micro games, I think they're quite grabbing. I think, aren't they? Shitty Technicals has a wonderful cover as well. Every time I look at it, I just smile. I hope that's in the
Yeah,
library.
it
As
is.
well. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great. It invokes everything that I love about it. Like, again, you can kind of almost apply your own theme to it as you like, but for me, this screams Mad Max. I love all of the paint and the way. This is just brilliant, and it leans into then kind of the miniatures and the terrain that we make for this as well. Something else we've got on the back burner, I think, is to make a little Shitty Technicals kind of display as well that we can tour around with us, and try and grab the eye of potential customers as they walk past. I love this game. I think it's wonderful. Again, this you can get this from More Games Vault from our website. You can also get it as being a part of a Patreon. So that's that $5 Patreon. It gives you access to all of our micro games and all of our full games. You get everything. And one of my favorite game modes in this one involves something called the Juggernaut.
Okay.
Yes.
So Lewis is already laughing. Typically, you'll want to play this with sort of 2 or 3 technicals aside, little miniatures like Matchbox cards, like we said earlier. But there is one mission where a player gets to use something called the Juggernaut, which is a great big thing that has crazy stats and lots of health. And for me, in my head, I always picture that that wonderful oil tanker from, I think it's the second Mad Max film.
Yes,
covered
yes,
in
it's the
barbed
second
wire.
one. Yeah.
Oh, I am dying to make a mini and a little board of that, I think, to show it off. I think that would look wonderful. If anyone has any
Yeah.
terrain tips on ideas on how to do that, I would very much welcome them.
Yeah. I think this game is really a good one for the sort of audience that that Karl has, because Karl's channel is, a lot of it is about terrain building, it's about scratch building, which is why I started watching it in the first place. And this is fantastic. This game actually allows you to get the nonsense out of your system when it comes to trash bashing and scratch building, because you can just buy Matchbox cars. I have a shop very close to me that's like a pound shop, a dollar store sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I bought some cars for £1, and then I got some turrets from some Flames of War tanks, and I stuck a T55 on the back of it's T55 turret on the back of a car, and it just made me so happy to put a tank turret on the back of a miniature car. It was great. So for people who like these sorts of channels and who really like building their own minis, building their own terrain, this is the sort of thing that allows you to do that. Stick a machine gun on a mini, or find a little miniature of like a pickup truck and put a cannon in the back of it, and play Shitty Technicals with those minis. It's such fun. It's such fun, and it's very cheap as well. I actually have some of mine in a tub over by the side of my computer. I haven't painted them.
Okay, 1 sec. Let's see.
It's true nonsense. I don't know if it'll.
Hang on a
Is
sec.
it?
Let me just bring you.
I do need to paint them. I really need to paint them. But
Shh. There's no such thing as a pile of shame. Remember that.
Absolutely.
That's what I keep telling myself.
So we have a legitimate excuse as well in that, oh, I don't have time to paint this miniature. I need to write rules for it.
Yeah. And so, I bought a box of things that were just sort of kids, construction vehicle toys. And then I put a tank turret on the back of it because I can.
That looks like business.
Yeah. Absolutely. If that hits you, you're going to know about it tomorrow morning. Like just a machine gun on the top of it because I can, and that's it. These are my shitty technicals. This is what I use to play the game.
That's a great palette cleanser, I think. I remember
exactly.
I still only own one or two. I need to pick up another technical or two, I think, ideally. But I kind of, between projects, I remember working on bases for core, and I got a bit kind of not stressed out, but I saw an awful lot of plastic art. I saw an awful lot of terrain paste. I saw an awful lot of bits of concrete and various resin pieces I had lying around in 10mm scales. But my eyes were kind of just phasing out a little bit. I need a palette cleanser in between. And what a great palette cleanser it is to grab a Matchbox car and start sticking some missile pods on it from another popular war game, and throw a bit of primer on it. Yeah. Really
that sounds like something I would want to do after I drive back home after an hour of traffic or something like that. Yes, and my car should have missiles and a flamethrower and a rocket launcher.
And I will never get caught in traffic ever again. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's see here. Earthman Brick is saying Monopoly, a game that's had far more editions than Games Workshop, yet never once felt the need to reinvent the wheel or change the rules.
I would argue Monopoly is quite a boring game. We should change it.
On the other hand, it does have a very complex combat system that tends to happen outside of the rules.
Well, I will say this.
Yes.
I've been playing a lot of Monopoly with family members. Nobody actually plays the rules of Monopoly. Very few people actually do the thing where if nobody buys a property when you land on it, you're supposed to auction it off so that all the properties go very quickly.
That's always fun. That's hilarious.
There's a genuine thing in Monopoly, isn't there, that you're not supposed to use more houses than are actually in the box. So a lot of people, if you've ever played this with your family, you might start using pennies and things to represent houses. You're actually not supposed to. There's a genuine strategy in that you just buy houses, you don't upgrade them to hotels, and so you stop other people from being able to buy houses. It's like a monopoly, if you will. This is very off topic. We're talking about Monopoly.
Tactics involve stealing those little house pieces before the game and just hiding them until
just hiding them.
Yeah, there's only 4 hours in the box.
I'm sure this is
that reminds me. A few weeks back, we had Mia Geeked, who was in the chat, had her on the stream, and one of the things she did was she repurposed those miniature houses into terrain pieces. So put them on a board, repainted them, and
they're about the right scale for like 3mm miniatures Monopoly houses.
Wow.
Something like
In
that.
fact, it's a really popular thing. The Monopoly City, like a lot of people buy those up for 3mm scale because the skyscrapers in them are the right size as well.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
All right.
They come with a lot of plastic skyscrapers, instead of hotels.
That's brilliant. I love that.
So you get Monopoly skyscrapers as well. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think we've got a Pete alluded to it earlier. We've got a great game in the works right now. Pete alluded to it earlier when he said that a deck of playing cards is used rather than dice to determine sort of random factors. But that's in the 6mm scale, isn't it, Pete? I believe. Obviously, you can use any miniatures you like. Absolutely. We've kind of written it with 6mm in mind because that's what a lot of the stuff we've kind of got is. But I'm thinking now maybe we should make it in 3mm and just have a lot of Monopoly houses.
I bought 3mm and it was too small. So look at I bought a set of it in 3mm. I was like, no, I can't paint this. It's too small.
Somebody contact Hasbro and ask them to remake all of their plastic houses and hotels in 6mm. If everyone watching the stream collectively writes an email to Hasbro, maybe they can make a 28mm Monopoly as well. That would be good, wouldn't it?
There's a good comment here from Earthman Brick. You don't need Monopoly skyscrapers. All you need is cable ties, which is a fact because he did build some skyscrapers recently out of cable ties and stuff like that.
I was thinking you cable tie your family members so they can't play the game anymore.
I've got a cable tie on me right now. Yeah, that's clever. That's very
well,
clever.
when we did some terrain for the upcoming game, Banksy just turned up one day with a bunch of trees that he'd made, and they were just what were they, fiber optic cable, weren't they?
It's Ethernet cable. You pull it apart, you just twist it up. And just like, I think I sprayed it brown and dipped it in glue and a bit of
That's
because it's that green sort of fake foamy stuff used for trees. Oh, yeah.
All right.
Isn't it very easy?
Yeah.
Nice dense little forest there, isn't it? Yeah, that's really good.
Okay, so let's see. Yeah, loosely collected is saying sounds like the stuff I got into Gaslands for. Speaking of the shit technical stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's not as in depth as Gaslands. It's a lot more. I haven't actually played Gaslands. Pete, you've played?
I have,
Gaslands?
yeah. Gaslands is a fair bit more in depth. There's like movement templates, and ostensibly you're doing a race and that kind of thing. It's
But
more
Street
of a-
Tentacles is you've got a vaguely vehicle shaped model, and that's it.
It very much is exemplifies that core tenet of the micro game, which is play it in 20 minutes or less, roll some dice, and have a great time. So it's a
20 minutes
lot
or less.
less. It's definitely a lot less complicated. Yeah, or less being important. It's definitely a lot less complicated, but there's certainly a lot of overlap there with Gaslands in terms of the kind of minis you'd probably be using. So if you've already got a car or two for Gaslands, then yeah, shoot your technicals. You've already got a full army. Look at that.
Yeah. 20 minutes or less, so your pizza's free. It's easy.
Okay, by the way, if you people are hearing any explosions in the background, don't worry, it's just fireworks.
Karl's coming to us from Kiev, I think. At the moment.
So let's see. Oh, Dungeon Matrian, my husband's co-worker, gave me a couple of baby teeth to craft with.
Oh,
Ooh.
Eldritch horror incoming.
Do you know what,
Just say
that immediately made me think of an expansion that's coming out soon for Primordial Steel, or is it already out?
It may be out.
I
It's out
did
before
want
the end of
to
the month.
ask you about it. But
because
one second
there is
before we get to that, Earthman Brick says, I challenge you guys to make a 10mm scale forklift truck.
10mm scale forklift truck.
Ooh.
Right.
Do you know, I would love one of them. I've been, I've made quite a few bases that are in sort of a 10mm urban city, the ones we looked at earlier. But I kind of got bored of doing them, so I started to do sort of like a docks area with some shipping containers, and I thought like some little cranes and things would look really good. So a forklift would actually fit in perfectly there.
Okay.
If anyone figures out how to do a 10mm forklift, I will steal that idea.
He did build that. So Steve, if you can drop a picture of that in the Discord, we'll have a look at it at the end of the stream, okay?
That I definitely need to see. I could do with making probably about a half dozen of those. I think I've got a few bases I'm working on at the moment, which like I said, like sort of maritime docks kind of things. Been playing with the idea is to do some water effects as well, but we'll see. We'll see if I feel saucy enough to do that.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay, I got a baby kangaroo skybird in my backyard because, of course, you do. Okay, and the teeth thing make me think of Turnip 28. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
I agree with that. I always thought that Turnip 28 was very cursed. Very, very cursed.
Okay, but back to your games and excuse the background noise. So this is the one you were talking about, yeah?
It's one of the expansions. We've got
okay.
3 expansions out now.
There's 2 that are out. There's one that's going out at the end of the month.
Yeah. So there's 2 out currently, and there'll be one out very, very shortly. And I mean, we always wanted to kind of expand on Primordial Steel. There's, a lot of ideas and a lot of scope for just new things that we can add. And obviously, those are all available through the Patreon. You get those as well as part of that. They will be released probably in about a year's time with all of them kind of collected together.
So what do the expansions add to the game? Is it like more?
So this one, the Hollow Earth adds 2 new factions to the game, as well as so it's an additional mission, and it adds 2 whole new factions to the game. So this one adds the Amazonians and the Troglodytes. They've kind of got like an overlap thing going on where they both use kind of dinosaurs as their kind of monstrous creatures and that kind of thing, because they're both from the Hollow Earth, the kind of very kind of Tarzan-esque idea that the world is hollow, there's dinosaurs on the inside.
All right.
Psychic pterodactyls, whatever that film's called. That's a real film. It's based on a book.
Oh,
No
all
way.
the cheesy goodness. Yeah.
the name for so like this expansion in particular, you've got the kind of dinosaurs that are shared by both factions, but the way that the factions interact with those monstrous creatures when they build their lists and things is different. So the Amazonians get a lot of buffs when they're alongside the dinosaurs because they tend to work with them in in harmony and that kind of thing. Whereas the troglodytes can like damage the dinosaurs to get bonus effects from them, but they're obviously hurting them because they're not, they're more kind of like slave animals than anything else. So you've got that. The other expansion we released is Troll Haunts. And in kind of the lore of Primordial Steel, a troll haunt is a region where trolls live. It's like a troll nest, essentially. And that also contains an additional mission.
Is this related to
yes, yeah, that's the kind of cover art for it. So that contains an additional mission that adds actually a new unit to every faction that's in the core book that is either some kind of troll. So again, in the lore, the trolls are a very adaptive species, so that lots of creatures are trolls. So like, for example, in Welsh myth, there's a creature called an afanc, which is like a kind of a furry river dwelling creature. It's actually the same word we use nowadays for beaver. Although in the myth, it's kind of like a large kind of troll creature. That's like an aquatic kind of troll in the lore, whereas like swamp tribes get a creature that's essentially like a tree man, but they're also a kind of troll that's just developed a very bark-like skin. And then the other factions who don't get trolls, like a yeti is a kind of troll, an oni is a kind of troll. The factions that don't get those get some kind of troll hunting equipment. So, for example, the Lupine Empire, who are a very Roman-themed faction, get a bolt thrower. They get a scorpion, essentially. Whereas, like the city-states, the kind of Greeks get like a specific monster hunter, like a legendary monster hunting hero instead. So that was kind of the theme of that, was just all the expansions are themed around a specific thing. So the Hollow Earth is themed about the Hollow Earth and the people who live there. Troll Haunts are themed around trolls and how they interact with the societies of the world.
Is this also related to the troll hunt?
Yeah, it's just some kind of generic art that was just in the book. The new expansion that will be out at the end of the month is quite an interesting one. It's titled Masters of Sin, and it introduces a new faction who are kind of based around like a kind of a cult and kind of like a demonic kind of faction, where they will start with a lot of their powerful units off the board, and they have to expend actions with their kind of cultists and things to summon them in.
Oh, right, that's an interesting mechanic.
Yeah, so they get the bonus so that the kind of summoned units are very strong for their points cost, but they have to give up actions early on with their dice in order to summon them out into the battlefield. So it's always, all the expansions are always going to be themed around a specific thing that either adds a new faction or adds things to existing factions, or kind of always expands the world in some way. Like they've all got a new mission, they've all got some lore about how they interact with the setting and the themes and that kind of thing. Obviously, it is a models agnostic game, so you can use whatever models you want, and you can use whatever like theme and lore you want. That's fine. From my day job, I'm quite lore driven. Because I write fiction, so that was always going to be a part of Primordial Steel. It was kind of unavoidable. It's what I do as my job, so I was just I was always going to work its way in.
That's a great thing about Primordial Steel, isn't it? Because it is based on, for those that haven't had a chance to look at it, it's sort of this concept that maybe the Earth is older than we thought it was, and there's this element of our ancient history repeating itself in cycles and things. So there's certainly a lot of historical miniatures can be used. Pete mentioned like the Lupine Empire earlier, so
I think,
very Romanesque.
Here you've got a lot of hoplite miniatures, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, that will be for the city-states faction, which is definitely not Greece, ancient Greece. But the interesting thing with Primordial Steel is that it's also kind of mythological as well. So you can see there next to the hoplites that you've got a Gorgon. And a lot of factions, because we are basing it off of mythology, or there's certainly mythological flavor in there from our own history, that this is kind of the design space we operate in. It's very easy to make expansions for this game because Earth history has a heck of a lot of interesting mythology out there, and we're only really starting to scratch the surface of. And there's many factions in the base game. How many are there, Pete? Out of interest, I've
9
forgotten.
in the core game.
9 in the core game, and we're already flying through some for expansions, and we're barely scratching the surface. One of our factions, my favorite faction, an army I've been working on for, and I'm keen to show off some painted miniatures when I get around to it, is the Ryujin Shogunate, which are based on, certainly inspired heavily from sort of ancient Japan and a lot of Japan's mythology. Pete touched on the fact that there are only in the game available to them. That is incredible, and it's really nice to be able to dive into that. But even if you just look at that sort of corner of the world alone, there's so much mythology there that we could expand upon that we've not gotten around to it yet.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so there's a lot of design space with Primordial Steel to be able to do that. I think the format of expansions works quite well because it means that Pete can put them out in a semi-regular basis. Rather than having to kind of spend months to release a very large book. But something that we're keen to do, obviously their expansions are available as PDFs, but something that we are very keen to do in the near future is kind of get printed copies out for people as well that are able to do that. So what we're likely to do is sort of produce a sort of I don't know what the right word would be for it, but almost like an almanac where maybe it contains the first few expansions in printed form. And so if, like me, you love your books, you're able to get it in a printed format as well. But there's so much design space for this sort of thing. I am currently in the process of writing some expansions for core as well, albeit with a very different kind of approach to the way we've done Primordial Steel, because it is, after all, quite a different game. But yeah, I'd like to think we'll probably follow the same sort of design space, our approach to that as well, hopefully. Very good. I love printed copies of books. I have with me. I keep it next to me at all times, of course. The printed copy of Core.
Okay,
I've got it here.
One sec.
Oh, we'll have a little look at it live on stream together, shall we? That sounds like fun.
Yeah, let's do this. Just one sec. But yeah, in the meantime, I see that in the chat, people are busy designing their baby doll head troll.
That is brilliant. And probably works quite well with Masters of Sin. Yeah, here you go. So I've got my printed copy of Core here. Oh, thank you very much, Karl. You're on the ball with the editing there. And what a nice thing it has to have books. We sell all of our things. They're all available in PDF, which you can grab from a variety of places. They're on Wargames Vault. They're on our website as well, nthlevel.com. But you are able to get these printed as well. Obviously, you're welcome to print them out yourself if you've got the PDF. You can do with them as you like. But we do have, through Wargames Vault, the ability to purchase printed copies of our rules. This currently would only apply to our sort of big games. Our micro games are so small that the kind of the way that the printing and the costume would work just doesn't really fit the model, because a lot of them are sort of 10 pages, 12 pages, 15 pages at max, whereas our bigger games are a bit more substantial, quite a few pages. This is very small compared to Primordial Steel, it's worth pointing out as well, because there's so much lovely lore in Primordial Steel. But take a look at the document there for Core. I love having printed copies of books. I think it's quite important for us that we're able to put these out as well. So if, like me, you like books and anything we've spoken about today interests you, or indeed stuff coming out in the future, you are able to get printed copies if we could print them out at home. Our first Patreon we discovered was actually somebody that lives close by. I hope he's watching this. That would be wonderful. And he printed out, and he even ring bound his own copy of our rules, and he used to bring it with him every Tuesday when we play a game. And I thought, what a sweet thing. So it's quite important for us, I think, that we're able to put this out there as well, because physical copies of rules are very, very important. I'm trying to think if there's a good page we can show off. There's an awful lot with this book that I think has just come out really, really nicely. I hope the stream doesn't butcher it too much, but you are able to download the free copy of this game from Wargames Vault, so do check it out. Print it out if you like. Why not? Go for it. Something that's quite important. I guess we haven't chatted about this yet, but something that's quite important when it comes to our free rules for our games is that we're not hiding anything behind a paywall. If you look at our free rules for games, Primordial Steel is a great example. Every single mechanic in that game is available to you in that base book. The same goes for core. In truth, I think for core, I think you get sort of 34, 35 pages of content, and then the paid version has about 20 extra. So it's over 50% of the book. You're getting all of the rules, all of the art, and nothing is hidden away from you, because we want you to see all of the mechanics that are available in the game. And then typically with the full version, you just get in the minutiae and the extra detail. So in the case of Primordial Steel, you're getting, I think the base game comes with 2 factions, I believe, Pete?
I
Three.
think so, yeah.
Or three full
yes,
factions.
three, yeah.
3 full factions out of the 9. That's a perfect 33%. And all of the rules are there, so you can play to your heart's content with just the free copy of the rules if you like. You almost don't even need to ever purchase the full version if you don't want to.
Please
but
do.
but please do, because you will get an awful lot more detail for it. I think there'd be a lot more value in it in terms of like getting more missions, I believe, as well. I think in the full version of the game. Similar can be said of core. So you get all of the mechanics in the game. From the get-go, it's all there. Even some of the stuff we looked at earlier that I did, the tiny squads of infantry and tanks, we call them conventional forces in the game. All the rules for them are in there as well. You get absolutely everything right up until your first demo game with the pre-built mechs. You get that in the free copy as well. When it comes to purchasing the game, then what you're getting access to is the ability to customize your own and kind of the tool set to be able to do that. And then the rules for those sort of tiny squads of infantry and things as well. And then you're getting additional missions on top of that as well. So I think it's safe to say that with all of the big books that we put out, they will absolutely all of the time have a free version of the rules, because we want people to download it and read it. And if it takes your interest, take the plunge, buy the book, maybe even become a patron if you like, and get it all for $5 a month. That was a TV advert and a half, wasn't it? But certainly, we want to include a number of missions for you as well. We want you to see kind of the depth of the game and the breadth of the game, and pull the trigger if you enjoyed it. That's something that I think we're keen to do forever.
Yeah, it was always important to us, because like it's quite difficult to get a friend into a war game if you have to go, right, so you need to buy an army, and a star box will cost you £80, whatever it is, for certain large games. But then also you need to buy this rule book, and also you need to buy this mission book, and also you need to buy this other book, and you'll spend £100 on books before you even get your first game going. We always want to be like, I really like this game, I've had a lot of fun with it. Just download the demo copy and read the rules, and you'll be able to play with me, even if I own the full copy. That we always wanted to be, if you want to get a friend in the game, there's no cost to them aside from the cost of the models, which they probably already own. That was always a key part of it. We don't want to gatekeep anything away from having fun with a friend. That's what a game is for at the end of the day.
Yeah, and
Yes.
As Karl mentioned before, you can just use card tokens or wooden blocks or something like that. So there's really a sort of zero cost of entry if you download the demo and use some paper tokens. So.
Yeah, I think that's important, because again, if you're getting someone on board a new game, the fewer barriers you throw their way, it's like in some hobbies, like if you want to do photography or whatever, you need to buy equipment, you need to get lights and whatever. So there is always a barrier to entry. If you just want to play a game, why are you putting those hurdles in the middle? Know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
exactly.
and we're working hard to reduce them as well, I think, where possible. I certainly for the stuff that I've been working on, I've been trying to make that barrier for entry lower and lower and lower. My next project is a 28mm World War II themed game, although again you can play it in any scale you like, but with sort of between 4 and maybe even an absolute outside maximum of 10 miniatures aside. And hopefully people already own some World War II miniatures, and so they'd be able to play this game. I certainly, for me, I think a lot of our focus is certainly a lot of my focus is going to be on keeping that as accessible as possible, and making sure that no matter what you've got or what you've into, we've got something for you. 100%. In fact, hopefully we'll have more than one thing for you in many months to come. Our work rate at the moment has been pretty good. I think, was it November you said, Banks? Was our kind of our initial start
November.
date? It's tricky to pin it down into one specific date, because we've kind of had inklings of things for quite a while. I think there's been sort of gears turning in the background. But if we assume November is the official start date, in that time we've put out 2 full games, 4 or 5 micro games, and we've got quite a few that are imminently launching soon, plus some expansions for Primordial
Nice.
Steel. Our work rate has been pretty impressive,
You've been
and
busy.
so
You've been
hopefully
very busy.
very, very busy. And we do all have day jobs as well, would you believe it? So hopefully, you know, if not now, then in the very near future, that we have a game that is your game and is the kind of game you've always wanted to play, and allows you to get those creative juices flowing in terms of building a force for it or some terrain for it. That's definitely the goal. We may already have that game for you right now. Check out our website because everything is there. But certainly, if not now, then very, very soon. We've got some very cool things in the pipeline that I'm really looking forward to sharing with people. And I should point out, actually, because I've already done an advert for ourselves earlier, we do have a community Discord as well over at the Nth Level. So if you're interested at any point in chatting about games, suggestions for games, you're more than welcome to join in. Every Thursday at 9 p.m. BST, so it's British summertime currently because we're awkward. At 9 p.m. we hang out for at least an hour, often until the end of the night, just discussing hobby projects, just discussing games, and having a laugh. So not to take away from Karl's Discord users, but certainly you're welcome
Which
to
is
join ours
great.
as well. You're more than welcome to join us.
Or
in
instead,
addition.
you can leave Karl's on.
You may
Okay.
even see Karl hanging out with us as well. He's a member of our
I do
community
drop by
Discord.
sometimes. Actually, do you guys?
Absolutely.
Is it okay if I drop a link to your Discord in the
No,
chat right now?
please
Absolutely.
do.
Just put one there.
For at least an hour a week, please do come along and hang out. We're always talking about and sharing pictures of our hobby progress, be it miniatures, be it terrain. You'll even hopefully start to see some of my diorama as well. I'll make sure to share it in Karl's Discord as well. But I'm gonna start working on that in anger soon, I think, because with any luck in the next couple of months, we'll be looking to start touring our products, certainly around the UK. That would hopefully extend soon. Who knows?
Certainly around the UK, the second stop will be Malta.
Hey, I'll get the beer ready.
Naturally.
Good
Yeah,
man.
and we'll make it a business expense, I'm sure. So it's
Essential business trip to Malta.
Okay,
yes,
so let's see.
definitely.
We have Owen Tourlamain. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Sorry, in the chat saying, "Oh, I'm here." I think he's the person who said printed out all the
That's the man.
Nice one, Owen.
Definitely have
Yeah.
printed out all the expansions too.
Oh, I bet they're beautifully bound as well.
And
Yeah.
speaking of touring your products, Questboard Terrain is also asking. You mentioned playtesting. Do you have plans to stream or broadcast games?
Yes, I noticed the message sent by Questboard Terrain in the chat, and so at the moment we don't actually stream or broadcast games, but now that you've brought it up, it is an absolutely fantastic idea. So the answer is yes. As of now, we do have, as of this second, we do have plans to stream and or broadcast games, because that is a fantastic idea, and that is why I use YouTube. Most of my watching is battle reports, streamed games, and then terrain building channels and things like that. And so I've wanted to add to that for quite a while, and I think actually broadcasting some of our games is a fantastic way to do that. We've already had the idea of things like videos that are how to play Primordial Steel, how to play Core, and things like that. But perhaps poor old Karl very soon is going to be getting a message from me. Be like, right, so what are the pitfalls to avoid when doing some live streaming? In fairness, he's already taught me plenty when it comes to terrain, so perhaps I'll be asking him for tips on technology as well.
We have had a chat, but it's a great question, by the way. We have had a chat about it before, myself and Pete, because in another life, we played another popular tabletop war game I'm trying to think of a clever. I'm gonna
Hammer War, wasn't it? Hammer War.
I'm gonna skirt around any potential issues with that one. And we did test out at the time for different purposes, of course, and for a different kind of target audience. But we did kind of fetter around sort of live streaming battle reports. So we did some to mixed success. It's definitely something that we want to look into more in the future, because we acknowledge that there's a lot of people out there that love consuming content that way, myself included. And I think they should make for quite good battle reports. In theory, if we're playing a game of core, that's a between a half hour to a 1 hour stream. That is digestible. You could sit down
Definitely.
and have a beer and eat your tea and watch that. Unlike sort of a 3 or 4 hour game that we will not mention, that is maybe challenging to stream at times. So it's definitely something that we've chatted about before, and I think logistically we'll need to work out how that fits in with our schedules at the moment and how we can make it work. We mentioned briefly that we're lucky enough to have an incredible local game center where we play. That is, again, amazing. It's got lots of terrain, lots of table space. It's got a cafe on site. It's wonderful, but all of that comes at a cost because it's very noisy in there. And so if we were to set up filming equipment and play in there, you wouldn't get necessarily a very good audio experience. So I think what is likely to happen is if we do look into streaming content, that we'd have to do something very, very clever with our audio if we're live streaming it, or indeed we have to do it at a different non-disclosed location in Wales, or indeed, as you say, Karl, pre-recording it instead, maybe adding sort of a voiceover dub with some lovely royalty-free background music, perhaps.
The thing with pre-recording it is that it lets you cut off any dead time and so on, because I understand that a 30-minute game is much easier to consume as a video than a 4-hour game, hands down. But attention span on YouTube seems to be very boom, gone. So yeah, the shorter you can make it, it always helps. And what I was just thinking, for example, as you mentioned how to play or whatever, one thing that you might like to try is using shorts for to explain rules concepts. You don't explain the whole rules, but you say, okay, this is how this rule works, and you have 60 seconds to explain it.
Yeah, this short is about
idea.
this specific mechanic, and this short is about this mechanic. And in part 3 of our series, exactly. It's a nice kind of digestible way, again, isn't it, of chopping up the content. We welcome any and all suggestions. Please do come along and have a chat to us on a Thursday, because we are learning this along with the community as well. And we're lucky that our community Discord has already got a lot of users that are willing to drop by and have a chat and help give us a bit of a steer here and there. We are human. We very much kind of welcome all of your inputs as well. So please do join. Is the link in there? We've got the link in the chat. Oh, well done, Mr. Banks. Yeah, fantastic. Pop along, have a chat on a Thursday.
Yeah, indeed. And we may have some different opportunities with where to film. And this is a very good opportunity for me, actually, to, Karl has invited us on, so we've been able to talk about ourselves, but I'm going to talk about Karl for a little bit, because I actually first started watching Karl's channel. It was a few years ago, it was maybe 2 years ago, and me and Karl were having a chat the other day about quite a few different things, about sculpting, about sort of mold making and things like that. And I sent Karl a link for an Instagram account that I was putting some pictures of terrain projects that I was working on. I'm not very active on it, but it had a few images. And the first one that I ever uploaded to that Instagram account was actually an image of some objective markers that I'd made following one of Karl's videos that he released about 2 years ago. The objective markers with the sort of green glowing stones, which is a fantastic video. And if people watching the stream have not watched that video, it's excellent. Go and watch it now. But more recently, I actually made a board to go across my dining table that is a 4x4 foot board, conveniently the size of board for the games that we make. And Karl has made a few excellent videos about battle mats using fabric and acrylic caulking, things like that. So I may be following one of those videos very soon. I can make a proper battle mat for this board to put in my living room, and then perhaps if we are to do some live streaming rather than pre-recording, then maybe it will be using that. And so not only has Karl invited us on to have a chat about what we're doing, which is excellent, but is also going to be instrumental in bringing those live streams of our games to you in the form of his terrain knowledge. So absolutely hats off to Karl. Yeah. Good man himself.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
but joking apart, I mean, seeing that you had built that thing from my video, it really made me happy. I think that really made my day.
That's good. Yeah, it really made my day to have resources, like your channel, where I can get some ideas for terrain, because I had no idea how I was going to make some objective markers, and I didn't have to have an idea because you had the idea first.
Yeah, luckily the whole community and the people in the chat, and they're usually an inexhaustible torrent of ideas. You usually have more ideas than you know what to do with.
Yeah, indeed. I think that the sort of terrain building and scratch building community on Instagram and on YouTube are some of the most creative people I've come across in my life.
Yeah, even just before we kicked off the stream, Karl and I were discussing the benefits of various types of foams and using hot wire cutters. So I have the incredible privilege of being able to pick your brains live over a Zoom call. So it does just go to show.
Okay, which reminds me, next week we're going to have a craft along session instead of the regular streams, and we're going to have Gerard Boom one with. So if you have any questions about foam, he's definitely the man to ask.
Well, I think you'll see me next Sunday.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, the man does miracles with a hot wire cutter.
Excellent. I'll be painting along with an Oathmark army that I'm working on at the moment.
Okay, so there was one more thing that I wanted to show from the list of images he sent me, because seriously, this is the most metal logo ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Proper sort of hair metal. Well, what do you reckon? So, it's Pete was the lead on Primordial Steel and had the logo done. So, Pete.
Yeah, I paid a guy who specifically does logos for metal bands to make it. Like, that's what he does. That's his job.
Okay,
And I
that's
went
where
to
that's
him
coming
and-
from.
Oh yeah, I went to him specifically because I wanted a logo that looked like a metal band logo. That was the kind of power metal fantasy vibe that I wanted. So I went to an artist and paid for him to do it. Outside of his remit a little bit normally, he obviously does like band shirts and band posters and stuff, but he did an excellent job. Really, really good job with it. I'm really happy with it.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the logo for Brutal Legend, which I have
Excellent
nothing
game.
but fondness for.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So yeah, that did make the it endeared the game even more to me.
Good. Yeah, it just goes to show, the benefits of a good logo, a good cover.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Rips you straight away. Yeah. Very wise move. Yes, I need to actually have a logo done for one that I'm working on. So I'll have to take any tips that Ollie and Pete can give on finding the right person.
My tip was marry someone who's a graphic designer.
Yeah, the secret fifth member of the Nth Level.
Yes,
Absolutely.
who isn't getting paid a salary.
In fairness, nor are
don't
we.
say that, no.
Yeah, well, that's true.
She's not an employee, she's a contractor.
Yeah, so
For tax reasons.
that was definitely my secret. I do owe quite a lot to my better half, not just the sort of the in terms of logo design for core, but a lot of that wonderful stuff you see on the interior as well, and the lovely stat cards that we have printed are ultimately all kind of her brainchild, albeit with my annoying direction over her shoulder, and they do look really rather phenomenal, I think. We also have, for anyone that's taken a look at the game. There are sort of conventional units in the game as well, and a lot of them have handy little reference cards. These are much smaller. They're in fact exactly the size of a trading card, so you're able to sleeve these if you like. This one's laminated, which is lovely. But you've got a lovely little reference card there for an infantry squad for use in games.
I love reference
all
cards.
the stats are me too. I love
It
them.
makes
So it
it
was a
so much
must.
easier.
It was a
Yeah.
must for me when making this game because there are so few units in the game. You can afford to do this. Yeah, these come with all the stats pre-done and ready for you, which is wonderful. So you get all of that in the full copy of the game. If you're purchasing it from our website or from Wargames Vault, you get individual files for these as well. So you're able to print out as many copies for these and for the mech stat cards as you like. So yeah, to reiterate, my advice: marry a graphic designer. If you're interested in making games, it's exactly what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay, gents. So what do you say we have a look at what people have been up to in the Discord since we're here?
Yeah.
Let's
That's
do
good.
that.
Okay, jumping on. So we're starting off with Lawrence from Dirty Basement Terrain.
That is phenomenal. What scale are we looking at for this?
I
Do we
think
think?
28mm, I think.
Oh, that would fit perfectly in Prime. Oh, look, I'm already linking it to our products, but wouldn't that fit perfectly in Primordial Steel? I'd love to see a little village of these. That's great. I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of.
wow.
Is there some clump foliage there in between some of the? I'm looking at the chimney in particular. It looks like some nice clump
Yeah,
foliage.
he did mention he
on
was
the roof
experimenting
there.
with his grass and grass tufts and the mosses and stuff.
That kind of patina adds. So I love painting miniatures, as Lewis has kindly mentioned earlier. But
Picture of them.
that kind of physical effect is something that adds so much more. There's only so far that tinting things with a green filter or green wash
Yeah, I
takes you.
agree.
Adding
You need
and
texture.
thinking absolutely the texture is key to making anything pop. But like the thought process has gone in there. Like looking at the joins in some of the work there as well. Places which would be naturally damp, naturally dank, where these things would grow. A lot of thought has gone into that, and it shows. It's really nice.
Okay.
Is the crafter present in the stream at the moment?
He is, yeah.
Yeah,
Dirty
absolutely.
Basement Terrain, yeah.
Can I ask, what did you use for the beams? Because I think they're really quite impressive. Because I
I
had done
do hope they're matchsticks. I do hope so.
well. I've tried using sort of ice lolly sticks, popsicle sticks, the Americans call them, and using those and scoring them. But then I can never get them to join very well at the corners. So as in the second picture, in the 4 here, the join actually is so good that it must be something else. They're foam, according to Earthman Brick. Thinks they're foam, which sort of makes a bit more sense.
Okay, just to take the mystery out of it, that's Lawrence's video where he's building this.
Oh, brilliant. We
Very
can follow
good.
along. We can follow along
Yeah.
and steal all of your ideas, Lawrence. Thank you very much.
Lovely. and he has confirmed that it's foam. Yeah, really incredible work. I love that.
Yeah, well, from a paint perspective, one of the hardest things to do with wood is actually sell the right kind of feel for wood. Yeah, a lot of miniatures, or indeed things that we scratch build ourselves, you can make something look like wood, but making it feel like wood is often a real challenge. So with my painter's hat on, I'm looking at the bottom left image there, in particular with the door. That is phenomenal aged wood. Something that is often really difficult to convey when you're painting wood. What kind of wood it is? Is it oiled? Is it varnished in any way? What kind of age is it? What part of the story does it tell? That is really nice paintwork as well. So lovely.
Yeah,
bit.
I've
Very
got
nice.
a trebuchet on my desk at the moment that was 3D printed. So unfortunately, all the like wood struts are just smooth. So I'm gonna have to work out a way of trying to create like a wood grain effect, because otherwise it's just gonna look like just brown rod. Like, it's not gonna look right. So I'm gonna have to like try and, I guess, use a lighter brown or something, try and break it up a little bit.
It's a real challenge as well, isn't it? Because that kind of wood would be something that is cared for by the army that maintains it. So it's probably
Yeah,
being
yeah.
oiled and things like that. So it's telling a very different story to
Well,
woods
the
that
miniature,
aren't adorned.
I don't know if it's holding the camera. It's quite dark.
Oh, hang on.
The miniature is kind of made out of
Let me bring you on screen 1 sec.
looks like sections of longship. Like the arm of the trebuchet is a mast, So I think that you would be right. It would be quite distinct. So I'm gonna have to try and work out a way of doing that.
Sorry about that.
So I think it's probably a bit too dark in this room to see it anyway. It's,
Let's carry on with the Discord. I want to see some more.
yeah.
I've
See, that's
got-
not
I've had a light
my
on my screen.
half stuff.
Okay, next up is a box from Tina Martins. So this is where it started off with.
Oh, lovely. Oh,
Oh, wow.
wow.
I was just about to say it feels like it needs some teeth, but apparently she got the first. Like,
Oh, look.
Okay, so it's basically marbles and foil, and then she build the fleshy bits out with. I'm thinking it's air drying clay.
Is that
Having that
That's
as a
amazing.
having that foil as the base texture is really interesting, isn't it? It gives you that kind of framework to then build the flashy stuff over the top
Yeah.
of it. Oh, that's so good.
Some spare marbles as well.
Yeah, if I understood correctly, she built this for a Belgian convention effect, and this is going to be their suggestion box.
right.
Oh,
Oh.
wonderful.
Very
Wonderful.
clever. Very clever.
And
Love
that puts the conversation in the chat about teeth into perspective. 'Cause I had no idea where that was going, and now it makes sense.
that.
I really like the detail, like the bendy bit at the bottom, because that really sells the. I think it's like organic and flexible.
Yes, yeah, totally agree. Really, really good. So I wonder with the teeth, what? I mean, there was that conversation in the chat about the teeth. So I don't know if I want to ask, but what the teeth actually are, whether they're sort of.
I'm pretty sure they're not baby teeth. They're probably.
If your baby has teeth like this, please take them to the
No, I think they're just made out of air drying clay as well.
Makes sense. Makes
But I
sense.
think Tina's in the chat, so she will be able to confirm.
Yeah.
That's so good. I love that. I want one in my home.
I've got a Pathfinder on Tuesday. I want one to just keep all my DM stuff in.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea, isn't it?
Those are made from clay.
They're
Yeah,
made from
the
clay,
teeth are made
yeah.
from clay.
Brilliant.
That's
Thank you, Tina.
fantastic.
Yeah, so cool.
Earthman Brick is saying, Karl's next challenge, how many human teeth can people donate to Karl? People don't need to donate teeth.
One is too many.
I can collect mine, Steve.
I've got too many teeth.
How many human teeth does Karl want? Has anybody asked that question?
Incidentally, I'm about to post Karl's PO box address in the chat. If you want to send him teeth,
Yeah, his email. You can email him teeth as well.
No, I mean seriously, there's no need. I mean, I do live next door to a dentist, so it's no problem.
oh no,
I just need to go through their trash every so.
that's gotten quite dark quite quickly.
He's going out giving candy to the people in the waiting room.
So, because I'm intensely morbidly curious, you can't buy human teeth on Amazon, but you can buy realistic resin human teeth, just in case you were a psychopath.
Right.
Or a
Hey.
terrain builder.
I've got a guy who's no teeth. It's fine.
All right, you probably do, don't you?
Okay, next up is Dungeon Matron's build, which he's making for the water terrain challenge we have going on. Okay,
It's
so
like one of them fishing
Really
games
good
when you're a
hit,
kid,
yeah,
right?
it is,
And
yeah.
Yeah.
she just said she had the tentacles and eyes and teeth to them.
Very good. So where are the tentacles from? How did you do the tentacles? If this person is in the chat.
I believe she is, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if it was one of the texture rollers that you can get and maybe epoxy, a two-part epoxy.
I get the feeling like there's some wire underneath that, isn't there? As a support
there's got to
structure.
be, yeah.
Okay, the tentacles are from Final Faction. They're these Dollar Tree
Oh,
Tree
gotcha.
toys or whatever.
Oh, very good.
Very cool. I'm actually very intrigued by that effect because that's just sparked off a reminder for me for there's a little teaser for you. One of the expansions for Core will feature a new faction that includes sort of organic monsters, kaiju, as a playable faction in the game. So if you want to recreate that experience of having a giant robot punch Godzilla, you can do it.
Not
Legally
Godzilla.
distinct,
Not
Godzilla.
Godzilla.
Oh, of course.
Godzilla.
Copyright-free giant lizards. But yeah, what a I'm feeling the need. I think it's difficult sometimes to find miniatures out of the box that fit exactly what I have in my head for one specific piece I've got that I think will tie into my diorama. And so I'm thinking I'm going to have to take a look at the final faction stuff by the sounds of it. I was thinking about having to sculpt it, but as Lewis will be able to attest to you, I'm a good painter. A sculptor I am not. Yeah, that sounds really final faction. I'm going to make a note of that one. Thank you very much. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, because Bertrand is also pointing out that yeah, this build also moves. Again, it's the fish game still works under that. So
Right. Okay.
Oh, right. They all come up.
Excellent.
so
So
the eyes open
could
and
make-
close as they move. So yeah, I'm really
That could make
looking
quite
forward to
interesting, like-
watching the finished one.
The
Look
eyes,
interesting
mouths,
little
and
app
tentacles
for,
pop up and down, and they close. That is simultaneously a sentence that has filled me with awe. That is an incredible project you've done, but also dread. That will
I think of
possibly
it-
haunt my dreams tonight.
You
Thank
have quite a
very
good
much
D
for
and D like location with that. Where they all come up randomly as your little characters wander along.
What
Oh no, my cleric's been
that. A
eaten
very
by
clever idea. I love that.
bully.
Great.
Okay, let's see. Next up, Questboard terrain. I think it's a wall.
Castle wall.
Guessing so.
Very
Is
good.
it a bit of an inside bit of packaging? It's made from.
Do you know what?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I think the way that that's
Oh,
been
yeah.
Presumably
done.
paper mache over the top. Presumably.
I see what you mean. Yeah.
I think the way that that's been done, I mean, it may ruin the original piece, so I'm not suggesting that you do this, but I think that actually the way that you've got certain bricks outset, and I know that this person is in the chat because I've had a little chat with them, you could actually use this as a mold, and you could take the negative sort of shape of it, which would work just as well as a wall. So I think actually from this one, you could probably make an entire dungeon's worth of walls just by casting the negatives back and forth. So I think that's actually really
Let's see if I can
quite
get
well
a
done.
close up of that. Let's see.
Ooh,
extreme
It's got
close-up.
it's got like PVA
Great.
glue stuff. Is it still drying? Mate?
Great texture on it.
I'm not sure if it's drying or it's fluorescent stuff. It could be either way.
Ah,
Oh, yeah.
Because if we look at the next picture on here,
very good, very good. Oh, that's cool.
Oh.
Oh, that mini there. I wonder.
the troll thingy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's very cool.
I'm liking the colors on it.
Yeah, I'm liking the colors on that. I'm liking the entire thing. And so I wonder where the sort of bone structures came from. I wonder whether that's also a case of, you know, a pound shop / dollar store toy that's had the terrain treatment to it.
I am almost certain that the gate, the bones on the gate, look like wings from a Halloween Raven toy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
almost
that's
certain, but I'm not entirely sure.
And I do wonder where the minis came from as well. Are they sculpts? Are they purchased? Because we were talking about sculpting the other day, Karl, and we were talking about how much we both enjoy sculpting. And I wonder if whoever's created this is the same.
So we have this has immediately piqued my interest because Pete and I have had a chat before about adding a faction to Primordial Steel that has maybe a sort of origins in being under the sea and having a faction that has come from the oceans. And as any of you who've read Primordial Steel will know, and Karl will know, that quite a few factions have sort of terrain pieces as a part of their identity, as a part of the thing that they can do in the course of the game. And this has immediately made me revisit that idea and all the cool underwatery coming to the surface type bits of terrain that you get. Like, that is phenomenal, isn't it? That's really cool.
Okay, so Kim is saying that the bones are from a $3 Halloween figure. And the let's see, the miniatures are miniatures were purchased on eBay.
Wow. It just goes to show you can get great minis for just about anything from anywhere.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. I've
Wow.
had pretty good luck with eBay actually.
What a cool bit of terrain as well. I think yeah.
Okay.
I think we're going to be revisiting that idea. That's awesome. Really, really nice.
And I don't think that Kim has the video for this out yet, but I'm going to drop the link to her channel in the chat, because basically what she's been doing is building these terrain pieces into a story. So there's a narrative that goes on from the first video up to present day, and I think she might have a couple of videos left on it.
I love that.
Brilliant. I'm on to. Did you say it was Kim's the name of the person?
Yeah,
Who's done? Right. I'm on to Kim's YouTube channel already. This this is going to be great for while I'm actually painting up that Oathmark army that I mentioned.
I'm feeling a lot
Oh,
more confident.
that's
Oh,
so cool.
wow.
That's so cool.
That UV reacted paint on there.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm sold. I have subscribed.
Yeah, that tower is just something else. I love that. Oh, look, they work. The doors work. Oh, genius. I love that. I'm feeling a lot better about the diorama that I'd like to build for Core now. In sort of an hour of being on here and seeing everybody else's work. I've followed I think 2 or 3 YouTube channels already in the space of about 10 minutes. So thanks, guys.
I'm glad to hear that. Okay, so Mia Geeked is up next. That's a lot of spiders.
Oh,
Whoa.
yes, this is brilliant because I have got a bag of spiders that are exactly the same that I bought as a Halloween decoration. And I know, it's
These are sentences you could only hear on a geeky nitty stream, isn't it? That I have
Yeah.
a bag of spiders.
So I bought some things that are, I'm sure that they are the same or very, very similar things. And I had no idea what to do with them.
Now you know.
Absolutely. These are super cool.
Those the paint job on these larger ones is terrifying. Good job.
Yes, excellent painting.
They look furry.
Most spiders are.
That's so good that it's actually triggered me a little bit.
Yeah, and
if I haven't got any rolled up newspaper I can hit it with. I've got a copy of Core. I can smack it with a copy of Core. Those are great.
So Mia Geek is saying that the big ones needed to be heated to actually pose them.
Oh no.
Okay.
Oh
no.
Which is a really good point. And the small ones are spider confetti from Halloween. I am sure that I bought 2 bags of exactly the same thing. Mia, when you bought them, were they just black and then you painted them white, or were they white already? Because the ones that I've got are just plain black, and I had no idea how to paint them to make them look good, because leaving the bare plastic on them absolutely would not look good, I don't think.
You know, I can't get over how good and how organic these poses look, especially that you've heated them up and positioned them yourself. That one in the bottom left in particular, that is motion that I've seen spider. Like that's good. You've clearly used some reference images and things there, maybe to do that one, which frankly has probably created a terrifying Google search history for FBI to look at one day. But the end result is fantastic. That is an organic, natural looking pose for a giant spider to be in.
Spiders are quite hard to do, I think. Even like a lot of like professional spider models don't look good because the limbs never look right.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason that these are so good, is that they do look real. That's why it's making me shake a little bit and look around in the corners of the room. But again, they're all great. That one in the bottom left in particular has really caught my eye. That little questing leg. Well done, well done. Very, very good.
Okay, let's move it on. Okay, let's see. Bit more progress on the Easy D6 Warp Bat Sculpt from Earthman Brick.
I can see some sculpting.
Yep.
Yes, you are
These are the
speaking my
skills.
language.
Those bases are
I'm
also
jealous of these
sculpted, by the way.
skills.
Yeah, those bases are incredible.
I hope not. What's the name of the condition of the? Is it
Yeah.
Trypophobia, I think.
Trypophobia? Yeah. I don't have that, but that is so good that I think if I did have it, I would probably that may set it off. That's right. The little bubbly bits as well, little
Yeah.
pustules. Oh, really good. Really good.
Oh yeah, that's champion.
Oh, there's your kind of your wire armature there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. These are skills that I really wish I had.
Hey, look at
Again,
that.
I love painting minis, but this is real art, and I'm incapable of that. These are great.
Hey, you are an award-winning painter, all right?
Well,
that's
thank you very
fine.
much. But I'm an award-winning sculptor. I am not. That's fab. Oh, we got a 10mm game board up next. Oh, this one is
Let's
near again.
bring it on one sec.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah,
This looks like it.
Mia
Does
a
it
lot of
fold?
work.
These look like modular pieces. Does it maybe fold?
Yeah,
or-
I've
there's
seen-
hinges there in the middle.
I've seen a couple of videos like this. It's a backgammon board
Oh,
because it's already hollow and it's already hinged, so you can do
got the
the
shape
terrain
there,
in each half,
yeah.
and then it just closes up. Yeah,
10mm scaled as well. Hey, you know what you could play games of that on with, right? Cores in 10mm.
Okay. In the meantime, I'm also dropping in a link to Earthman Brick's latest video, where he's got the cable tie skyscrapers he mentioned earlier.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Do you know this is wonderful because I've been lurking in Karl's Discord for a little while and being really impressed with the things that people are making. But now actually having everyone together in the chat of a live stream, I'm just going through and you know subscribing to people's
Cat.
channels now.
I see a cat. 10 out of 10. This is the best work completed in this stream. Good job. I haven't looked at the terrain yet. I'm just looking at the cat.
Okay.
What are we?
She's making a hex grid out of the these puzzle pieces. Ah,
Oh, like the 3D puzzles you get,
Yeah.
like for architecture. and
neat
things.
idea.
That's really cool.
Mm.
That's like I would never have thought to have done that. That's really clever.
also cat.
Also a cat.
Ah, here you go.
Oh.
That's the 10mm.
I take it back. I love the cat, but I think this is now number one.
Oh,
They are zip ties, really, aren't
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah.
That
they?
is genius.
The wheel.
Oh, got some lovely shipping containers and pallets
Oh,
there, and some
yes.
little oil drums. That is
Pallets, oil drums, and shipping
phenomenal.
containers are the bread and butter of sci-fi or modern war games
Oh, for
terrain.
sure.
Absolutely, like
And
near
these
future.
are good. Yeah,
Yeah, you're like your near future, your cyberpunky kind of things.
I honestly think if there were like qualifications for building terrain, then I honestly think that pallets would be one of the things you need to get a qualification in terrain, because if you can do a pallet well, you can probably do most other things well.
So what an interesting additional layer of challenge that we've got here in working in 10mm, because if we're looking at 28mm, you can use actual wood to look like scale model wood.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we've done here at 10mm, but certainly at 10mm that challenge is so much harder, right? Because these planks, these individual planks that make up these pallets, are going to be tiny, and they look perfect, don't they? If this was a product, I would buy an awful lot of these right now. Let me tell you that, because I'm looking to my left now at some bases I'm in the middle of making for core, and I would desperately need some lovely little forklifts and shipping containers and things. I'd buy these right now. These are phenomenal. Excellent job.
Yeah, Steve is saying that 70% of that build was cable ties.
There is no way.
I have so much respect for you. I
That
really
is
do.
incredible.
No,
Are you going to tell me that the pallets are all in the planks and the pallets are individual cable ties as well?
No,
I don't think they are.
Is
But
this
the,
it
the,
where
the
we-
forklift
That looks,
definitely is mostly cable ties and
That
pieces
is
of pen.
incredible, because it's got that texture. Those forklifts have those sort of striations in them, so that when it lifts, it sort of it locks into.
Yeah.
That is what a clever idea.
That's
You've
really
already got
smart.
something that has those markings on them in the form of cable ties.
Do you know?
Like, this is one of those videos where we zoom out, so it turns out it's actually cake, and they take a slice out of it.
Delicious terrain.
Oh man! Do you know the pallets look like they're air dry clay that's been stamped?
Yeah, I'm looking at that one in
it's
white there.
It's
a little bit
possible
further
because
back.
he does do a lot of casting with Oyamaru. So probably built one and
Oh.
then just stamped out the rest.
Absolutely speaking
Oyumaru
that.
is something that I've that is something that I have looked at, because while I'm not necessarily great at sculpting things, I think using Oyumaru in a 2-part mold to cast things is so good. Yeah, what a great idea. You've already nailed the palette. Just copy it more with Oyumaru and use lots of
Next
them.
up, the crate. That's the logical extension of a palette, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
of course, yeah.
Oh, I've tried making.
But look at that,
crates
like
plenty of
with a
times.
finger for
Difficult.
scale there in 10mm. That is phenomenal. Really good.
Okay, well, to be fair, Steve does have ginormous fingers, so that's probably about.
This is actually 28mm.
Yeah.
This is brilliant.
Okay.
Yeah,
I also
so
dropped
good.
link to the pallets and containers video in the chat.
Brilliant.
Okay, let's jump on to the next one. Oh, okay, this is from Martin Palpatria. Martin builds out of organic, let's call it creatures.
Oh, wow.
In this case, I think it's a piece of terrain, though.
Look
an angry
at
tree.
that.
Wow.
I did actually a bit of twig. So
It looks like it's probably some. Yes.
wire.
Yeah, there has to be some wood
So-
from the garden there, right?
I think it's
that looks so good.
It's probably knowing the way Martin works, it's probably mostly wood and maybe some joints covered in with green stuff.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
that's testament to how good that piece is, though, because you can't tell where.
Yeah.
First of all, if any of it is organic, it could. I mean, it looks like the whole thing's organic, but there's no there's a seamless transition there between what's been sculpted and what hasn't. If wood has been used, that is phenomenal. I love that, and that actually screams Primordial Steel, doesn't it? It's got that kind of
It
haunted
does.
kind of vibe that we really love and we always think of when we think of the games. So
Yeah.
I kind of want to buy some of these too.
I know,
One sec, because I think we had. I'm not sure if we had missed one of his pieces here last time, but here.
Oh my
wow.
God, that's
Oh,
amazing.
Wow, that's
And these are unpainted, so you can tell where the wood is and where the green stuff is.
Yeah.
This I think this is a key thing for obviously, if we're making things like 10mm scale shipping containers and pallets, obviously this doesn't apply, but for many medium, if possible, if you can use real things, genuine things you can find out in the world, seeds, leaves, twigs, mud, earth, tea leaves, all of this kind of thing, it adds so much more to a diorama or to a terrain piece, doesn't it? It just evokes that feel so much more, even if you start with it as a base and you paint it later on. It just makes it look that much more real. That's incredible.
Okay, next up, this from Tina Martins also. Tentacles made with green stuff world rollers.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Brilliant. Nice water
I
effects.
thought I
as well.
recognized that. Good job. Yeah, that water effect's phenomenal. I wonder what
That's
was
great.
used
So,
there.
yeah, what did you use
That's
for the
good,
water
isn't
effect? Is it a sort of 2-part or is it a varnish? It looks too thick to be varnish. It
Could just
looks.
be PVA. Right?
No, that's not PVA.
I
No,
don't
not
think
a
it's
chance.
That's what I use.
No,
Right.
It certainly makes me think of like a 2-part resin mix.
yeah, it looks like
It's
a
got that kind of
proper
depth
resin.
to it, isn't it? Yeah, it's really cool. That.
Yeah.
Could
A really
it
cheap.
was actually just water.
I just
Mix
left
it.
water in it.
You
Yeah.
just top it up every now and again with a little
Yeah.
sprinkle. Yeah.
A really cheap way that a YouTuber that I liked quite a lot, which is Terrain Made Easy. I don't think he's active anymore, but he was using just really cheap gloss varnish, and that absolutely does the job. But this looks better than that, so I do think it's a resin.
Yeah, Tina said that it's 2-part epoxy.
Yeah,
Nice.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. It looks incredible.
I wonder. This is difficult to do over a stream because we don't have the person who created the terrain in there. But I wonder how, at this scale, you solve the problems you get with bubbling when using the 2-part epoxy resin. A lot of diorama and terrain makers that I really enjoy, they have enough space where they can kind of point a heat gun at it and make sure that those bubbles kind of pop and melt away. But that would present quite a few challenges working in this sort of small space. That's really impressive. It's really, really well done.
I think
The effect around where the tentacles are coming out as well is really good.
Yeah, I think
awesome.
what happened here is that she made multiple Veritim pores to avoid the bubbling, because I don't see any other way of. You're
Lots
not going
of
to heat that
thin
for sure.
layers there. Yeah, that's really, really cool. I think that helps sell the effect as well, doesn't it? Because when it dries in thin layers, the light reacts with it differently than it would if you did one great big pour as well. That probably helps a lot with the depth that we're getting. Yeah, it's really, really cool. It's impressive. And a great scene.
Ah, we know.
Okay, let's see the Shrek.
Oh, wait, did you really join just to show these off? Well done, sir.
Yeah,
Well done.
absolute legend. Our
And
boy.
what the I mean, before I chime in and say that these are incredibly well painted minis by a very talented hobbyist, I wonder what game system you could use well painted miniatures for.
Oh,
These
dear.
are fab. So I think this is well, we've got quite a few things here, but I believe these are for a Lupine Empire army, which are loosely
Yeah,
based
let's
off
see.
of kind of. We've got two,
Not the
yeah, that's
Romans.
right.
Lupin Empire
Yeah,
and Albion, yes, yeah.
So Lupine are very kind of loosely based off of ancient Rome, a mix of history and mythology of ancient Rome.
Yeah,
So
I
some
mean,
really
it's
beautiful
ancient
looking
Rome plus
walls there.
werewolves, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Right?
Yeah. So the thing with the Lupine is that if you were to take Rome's myths, they're essentially the same as Greek myths with the names changed. So the Lupine take more inspiration from the kind of Romulus and Remus raised by wolves thing than kind of anything else. The actual myths go to the city states. They get the Gorgons and the Minotaurs and whatnot.
Yeah, I just love Owen's minis in general. His Lupine army is something that I am constantly in awe of. But the werewolves that he's done, I can't stress this enough for people viewing the stream. Like the blood effects on these on the claws
And
is
in the mouths as
so
well.
good. Yeah, and
Yeah.
fleshy bit, flesh. The one on the left there's got a big bit of flesh in his
Drippy
mouth.
bits and
It's
stuff,
blood
yeah.
on the snow, jibbly bits. Yeah, the sheen and the texture on these things is incredible. And again, much like the spiders we looked at earlier, I get slightly creeped out every time I look at them, but in a very, very
Yeah,
good
they
way.
look very evil.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and so Owen also has some Albion miniatures there as well. So a healthy mix of things. I did that fourth image there. I think this is one I'm in awe of Owen's skills at this. He made ballista.
Okay, we're going to look at that in just a second, but first I would like to closer look at these guys. Here we go. Because
Oh,
the,
yes.
Yeah.
I
Look how
do hope
good, like-
that's not freehand. That's silly if it is.
No.
The
So I
field.
know he's done this. I know how he's done
good,
this. You can. There's a company called Little Big Men that make transfers for shields
okay, that's good
for
to know.
specific miniatures. Yeah. So these are a Victrix kit, and you can get the transfer specifically sized to the Victrix shields. I mean, they look incredible when they go on.
Absolutely.
They're really good. And obviously, it helps that the dudes they've been put on are well painted as well, and they really make them pop out and sing.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
definitely
a lot,
elevate them.
don't they? And the incredible thing is that the Victrix miniatures that we just spoke about, like for a very low price, you get an awful lot of minis, a heck of a lot of minis. And so for in this case, I think this is quite a smart move that Owen did for an extremely low buy-in. You've got more than you'd ever need for a full army of Primordial Steel, with plenty of options for different games. You've wanted to try different units out and stuff, and they look insane, don't they? So good.
No weathering or anything, they're very easy to use. Seriously, the decals are,
They're
pre-weathered.
pre-weathered. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah,
They're
decals
really-
the decals have come a heck of a long way since I started the hobby many years ago.
Yeah,
They
that's what you
work.
mean.
They work a bit differently to other decals. You don't like wet them and then slide them off. What you do is you cut them out, and you place them face down on the shield, and then you wet them and peel off the backing paper.
Oh, okay. All right.
Ah,
Yeah, that
okay.
sounds a lot easier than the whole.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool.
These are really funky.
What are these again?
These would be the kind of trolls equivalent for one of the factions. Yeah. They're like kind of like a wood troll.
Okay.
Or if this for his Albion, he's probably playing them as swamp elementals, I would imagine.
Okay.
Because they can summon things, because they're like based very like on like kind of Celtic and Irish myths, so kind of peat bogs and swamps are a very common thing
I get it.
in ancient Britain. Like a lot of the east of England in ancient Britain was just a massive swamp for hundreds of years that we kind of drained out in the Middle Ages. So they've got like the access to these kind of elementals. Lore-wise, they're the kind of spirits of druids that have like passed on, and they animate the muck to help their still living kind of comrades and kin.
And I can say, living in modern day Wales, you know, the spirits of druids are 10 a penny. You know, they're everywhere. You know,
he's joking. He's joking, but kind of not. Sometimes you can go to Cardiff on a Sunday and there will be a druidic procession through the street. Like that's happened. Yeah.
Owen's actually pointed it out in the chat. This is a really great point. If you look at the feet of some of these guys, they've got sort of swampy goo emanating from them as they step. Like looking at that mini in particular there, Karl, in the middle, like that with a foot forward, there's sort of swampy, gooey stuff coming out of the feet.
Yeah, no, that you mentioned
really
there's some shine here and here. Yeah.
So good. It's like they're
I think playing 6 of them is a bit mean to your opponent.
I imagine Owen is. I wonder where these minis have come from, actually, but it looks as though it's sort of maybe a set of 3 minis. There's some duplicated poses there.
I think maybe they're TT combat ones. They do a lot of
that's interesting.
Generic elementals and stuff.
That's a great usage of those minis. So these are perfect, aren't they, for swamp elementals?
I really like the detailing on the mushrooms. They do give different color.
Fungi bits. Yeah,
and
really good.
I think that most over there is added on top. I don't think it's part of the mini. Yeah?
I don't think so. No,
that's extra
vegetation.
Looks
to be, doesn't it? Yeah, it looks to be extra bits.
Yes.
Bits of clump foliage. Yeah, it's really cool.
They come in
nice job, Owen.
They come in a box of 6. Same problem with the infantry.
Really cool. Big fan of those.
Okay, and next up, ta-da!
This is just insane. I cannot stress enough how insane a job Owen has done with this. I've been lucky enough to see this in person. The string, the string on the Batista, it's insane. So good.
And that is another case of Owen being mean to his opponent, because if that thing is pointed at one of your minis, your mini isn't going to be there for very long.
Yeah, I think I remember a note he left on the Discord at one point when he was testing it was like how quickly it obliterated the mammoth or something like that.
Oh yeah, it will. It will. Yeah, I mean, that's what it's designed for. Is not just a kind of theoretical like lore piece, but a game piece. It's for killing big monsters, and it does the job very well. Unfortunately, it's also quite. It's kind of balanced out with the fact you have to take an aim action before you can fire it, so you can only fire every other action. So it eats into your kind of action economy and your fatigue and things like that to bring it, and it's not cheap.
This for me just perfectly highlights like what the Nth Level is all about, which is if you've got bits from various different kits and some string lying around, chuck it all together and make a cool thing. Make it a mini diorama. Tell a little bit of a story with that base there. I mean, this is obviously not yet finished, but there's already we've got some missiles there stocked up on the side, ready to be loaded in. The guys as well that have been chosen for the pose are telling a great little story there as well. I love stuff like this. This is what I'm all about. I cannot wait to see this painted.
This is great.
Owen, if you could carry on, if you could paint this right now for me, that would be great. Thank you. Yeah, we got a live reaction from Karl. Oh, Mia, don't do this to me. Oh, not again.
These are the ones. This was before they were painted. Okay.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm pretty sure it's the same ones that I had from a Halloween decoration.
So good. So good.
Black Post, I know I've shown this off in the work in progress chat. Okay, this is Black Post building some medieval sit styles.
Ah, brilliant. Oh yeah, I love that.
Oh.
Yeah, looking really good. Things like medieval city tiles are just, again, they're a hobby staple. I think if you want to build a good looking table, and you want to do it as a sort of fantasy or medieval setting, you're always going to need something like this.
Yep. And I really like the texture he did on this because this was all drawn in pen on the XPS,
Oh, okay.
and the texture of it is looking really good.
Yeah, indeed. So it was drawn on with pen, and then it was sort of punched in with some sort of tool.
I'm not entirely sure, but a pen on its own will definitely do that, so it could be enough.
Yeah, that's true.
That's
true.
really good to know as well. That's really cool.
That's a great idea.
Why have I never thought of that?
So it's corks and two bottle caps on each end. Nice.
And we corks there as well, specifically, that have got like that sort of slightly rounded edge on them as well. So when put together, genuinely look like a column does when it's made of like stone or marble or whatever. That is insane.
Yeah.
I am
Great idea.
100% stealing this as well. Thank you. That's insane.
Okay, cross from campaign terrain. Okay, I remember this.
Oh.
This is the collapsing bridge you had built for the dangerous scatter terrain challenge.
Yeah.
So those bits all reassemble into an actual bridge.
Clever, really clever. I really like that. And so, in the middle of an encounter, you can sort of destroy it partway through.
Well,
yeah, good.
That speaks deeply to me. That's really cool.
I really like the trees in this one. I think that they're really, really decent. Really good. Again, it's about having enough terrain. So if you're wargaming, you want to have an interesting table. You want to have different things, and in this one picture, you've got enough interesting terrain for a skirmish quite easily. So I like that.
Trees in particular. This looks to be around about the 28mm mark, if I had to guess. But trees in particular are something that are just very, very, very tricky to do, or at least I find them quite challenging. And I'm sure a lot of people in the chat would agree that a lot of things that you buy out of the box typically are not really cutting the mustard. And so if you want to get something that really, really pops, often you're looking at making it yourself. These are brilliant. I wonder how these were done. Yeah. I want to steal that technique as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think I think with trees, that's one of the sort of YouTube terrain crafters challenges, because you can you can build decent trees. It's not impossible, but to build decent cheap trees,
good point.
That's the one. That's the one. So I'd love to know how these were done. I've taken to I found a massive bag of toy stuffing, which my partner had bought a while ago for a craft project, and she didn't need anymore. So I've now got this massive bag of almost cotton wool sort of consistency stuff, and I've just dyed a load of it green, and so I've been using that and then flocking it, which works, but it's not the best, but it's free, so that works.
Yeah, I mean, but like you said, it's a question of cost and time, because there are plenty of ways of doing it, and some of them are very, very, very slow. Some of them are very, 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 very time-consuming. Expensive. But I mean, with trees, you're almost always going to have to compromise.
Yes.
Let's not talk about the 3mm forest. I mean, let's not do that.
Okay. Funnily enough, small scale trees I found are much easier to make than large scale trees.
What I was trying to do, I was trying to follow a guide to make a 3mm. You can do a forest that's an actual canopy, and it was a case of you had to, around the edge of your XPS foam before you put your canopy on top, it was put in like basically thin nails through to form the trunks, but also how the trees stand on the edge. Took forever. I made it way too big to start with. It was like 8 inches across, trying to do like loads of nails very slowly through the foam. Took too long.
No. Yeah, I can see why it would take forever.
It looks all right. It took forever. I've not made anymore.
This is great. This is really, really good.
Okay, I think this is some of the modular pieces that Cross is building.
Yeah.
Nice.
The-
Modularity is a big thing. I think for me in particular, like extending your terrain that much further. Obviously, coming at it from a wargaming background, but extended that kind of replayability value almost, I guess, to just move stuff around and create different layouts every time is a big tick box for me.
Cross says that he has a video on his trees, and he just dropped the link to his channel in the chat.
Brilliant. Subscribe
Another
to
one
that
I'm
one
going to
as
subscribe
well.
to. Yeah, that's
Yep.
perfect. Lovely.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Don't remember
Oh,
seeing
nice.
this.
Oh, these are cool. These are cool. I imagine maybe foam or cardboard structures with filler over the top. I really like the sort of lintels on the doorways. On my own builds, all too often, I just chuck a door in the side of a wall, and it doesn't look right because usually you've got a bit of a porch or a bit of an overhang, and this person has actually paid attention to that, so that's really good.
Ooh, okay.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Well done. That is incredible.
I'm not sure if this is the mass production he's had going on for his because he's planning to start an Etsy shop if it has not started already. So he's been cranking up the mass production recently.
Yeah, fair enough. I was about to say this person games. Absolutely 100% confirmed. This person games.
That is
Knows how to
some
do it.
lovely terrain, isn't it? That wow. Yeah, again, I can think of 1,000,001 uses for these. These are really, really nice, really nice. You say this is so there's an Etsy shop maybe existing for these?
I don't know if he started it yet or not, but
Maybe in
definitely
progress.
starting. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I think you'll do very well with even just what we can see in that picture. That is looking superb. There's always a market for people with the need for tiny terrain, scale terrain. Yeah, phenomenal. Good job.
Absolutely.
Okay. Oh, and this is a board that Steve has been
Ooh.
working on. Again, Earthman brick. I'm thinking
Brilliant.
maybe some Necron terrain for 40k or something like that.
Yeah. And so what was the baseboard of this made out of? Because it looks like the sort of raised parts don't look like plasticard to me. It looks like it might be cardstock. And if so, how was this done? Because gluing that much cardstock on is surely going to warp something. So I'm curious as to what the base material is.
MDF and cardboard, he's saying.
Ah, smart. And so Earthman Brick, do you find that MDF doesn't warp too much if you use a lot of PVA with it? Because I've not used much MDF.
If it's thick enough, yeah, it's not gonna happen. It's not gonna work.
Ah, very good.
If you're using very thin in the MDF, yes, it's
It'll warp.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've taken to for quite a few things. I've taken to using really cheap vinyl floor tiles as a basic material,
right.
because that tends not to warp too much with PVA.
Interesting.
Okay, and Cross is saying that his Etsy will be open this week. Yeah.
Oh, that's great news.
Good going, man.
Congratulations. I wonder. Well, we do need some terrain for Primordial Steel if we're going to tour it around. If only there was an Etsy store. Yeah, congratulations, Cross. That's really good news.
Okay, and I think that wraps it up for the Discord.
Wow.
People, that was some great work as usual.
Absolutely, and it's given me a bit of a kick up the bum to get back on terrain building and join you fine people. Although I'm sure that my productions won't be anywhere near as professional as yours.
As I've already picked up a whole bunch of ideas for this diorama. I've been threatening to build for quite a while. I'm quite keen to start on that now. So and I've discovered about a half dozen YouTube channels in the process. So
Oh yeah, and
you've
most
all
of
just
them
earned
are
yourself
very good
another
resources.
subscriber.
And
Yes,
again,
absolutely.
all of the people here are very willing to share ideas. So or give tips or whatever. So definitely ask away if you need anything. And then there's no such thing as a non-professional terrain maker. If you're making terrain, you're making terrain.
And there we go.
I think there is, and I think it's me, but I appreciate how kind that is.
I'll do my contribution to it just as a last one. But there we go. There's one off. Oh no, it's gonna blur. There's
it's extremely blurred.
I didn't work.
How did you make it blurry? Is that a new paint?
Yeah, it was a technique. I don't know how to unblur the thing. Oh, there we go.
Let me see if I can transform. Why is it not resetting the transform? Yeah.
I haven't got any terrain to show you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out why. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, I do. It's upstairs.
Very good. I'm just getting the other one as well.
Okay, trying to figure out where everyone is. There you are. Okay.
There we go. That's probably a slightly better one, but there you go. That's my contribution to.
What's wrong with that? It looks good. Sorry,
there we go.
Juggling you.
You've got a moment. I might have a bit of terrain I can fill out
course.
as well. Give me one second.
Okay, let's just check out these houses first. So hold them up again.
Yep. Okay, so.
Ooh. What are these for, Lou?
These are just for my own board at home. I was playing a bit of Age of Fantasy Skirmish. This actually was going to be a much larger project for a D&D game.
All right.
But I did half of it. It was such a massive project. It was going nowhere. So I ended up chopping it up and using the bits that were mostly finished for
that's a
sort of
perfect good strategy to use.
Yes.
What are the bricks made out of?
So for the bricks, they're actually chopped up egg carton.
Okay, yeah.
Because the inside of it has such wonderful texture, which is then just sort of dry brushed multiple times. So there we go. It's hollow from where I was going to do a proper D&D inside of a building, but because of because that was far too big a project, I just thought I'll use it for the wargames table. And I'd been playing a bit of Age of Fantasy Skirmish with the AI rules, and so I've got my own table at home to do it with.
And I can think of a certain project that you may be working on that those would apply to perfectly as well.
I absolutely cannot confirm that I am working on a 28 mil fantasy game which will make use of those sorts of bits of terrain. So yeah. So there we go. That's my contribution to the terrain building. But I'll have to get back on it and post it in the Discord so it can.
Okay. So Betsy, you mentioned you had some terrain as well.
So I used to work in popular hardware store that may not run with Brewfix in the UK. I used to wander around the warehouse and just find random things on the shelves. And then definitely paid for them. So I got this bit of guttering, maybe like a little.
Okay.
Like silo thing. So you can see the angle there.
Yeah.
You got
really good.
And then you got this made out of bits of back sockets.
It's like a
mostly for 40k, like a bit of wall. So you can see inside. It's got the pipes.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Got a whole board of that nonsense. And cheap as well is important.
Yeah, I mean, Earthman Brick here is probably your spirit animal here because he's always. I'm not sure who throws away all that stuff, but he keeps finding these parts and stuff on the street and building things out of them. It's
definitely done that. I've definitely just found stuff on the side of the street. Oh, that might give a bit of terrain. Pick it up, pocket it. Must make you look like a lunatic to people around.
Oh, this is a perfectly shaped. Yes.
Yes. There's a lot of that. Yeah.
Fab.
Was the baseboard for your stuff MDF banks?
Foam board.
Ah, foam board. Yeah, I could never find some that wasn't super expensive. Actually, when I got up to get the terrain, you might have seen behind me the one bit of XPS foam, one sheet of XPS foam that I've been able to find because it's
right.
such a nightmare to find in the UK.
Seriously.
I have found. Yeah, I really struggled to find it. It took me like a few months because you can go to sort of DIY and hardware shops and you can buy it, but you can only buy it in packs of 20 massive boards for over 100 quid. So trying to find an individual sheet was a nightmare. But there we go. So that's the one that I've found that I'm keeping very
The
safe.
only one in the UK.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember that Mike from Net1 Videos was talking about this as well. Maybe it might be an idea to, I mean, you have access to a club. Maybe say, hey, how many of you people want some XPS? Then you buy a block and then split up between you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Might be much
absolutely.
easier that way.
That's quite smart. I find it goes quite a long way though, because I think quite a lot of us, if we really struggle to find XPS foam, then we get into the habit of making relatively decent terrain that's pretty much all cardboard.
Yeah.
And cardboard is more difficult to work with than XPS foam, but it is possible.
It depends. For example, I find that structurally cardboard is much easier to. Let's put it this way: if you're going to make a large tower or a large building, you could make it out of sheets of XPS, and that's going to be much more expensive than it should be.
Oh yeah.
But if you build a cardboard framework, which will cost you basically nothing, it will probably be a bit safer for it because there's no risk of it snapping.
Yeah.
And then you just put XPS. You can either do textured sheets and put them on top, or you can do the bad thing and use bricks, which will take you forever, but it looks fantastic.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's the thing.
DM Scotty in the chat. Good evening, sir.
Very good.
And yeah, DM Scotty is definitely a cardboard and hot tool person. He very rarely uses XPS.
I think it's quite interesting, the idea of using sheets and texturing sheets and putting that on top. But then, as we were talking about, you can find things like egg carton boxes, or actually I did something really wacky a little while ago.
Okay, in the meantime, Lawrence is making us remember that he gets XPS for free. Because he works on construction sites, so it picks up the pieces that gets thrown away.
Absolutely. You can pick up bits. I did something a bit wacky recently. I decided that I was going to try recycling paper just because why not? I had a spare afternoon. And so I did. So I shredded up loads of junk mail that had been delivered and, got the equipment that you need to recycle paper. And so I did. And it comes out, it's really similar texture to egg carton. So I actually just use this for stone texture walls now.
Yeah, that's pretty much what a carton is in the first place.
Well, I guess so, yeah.
What I did on with junk mail and stuff is did the same thing. Went through the same process to get it into a pulp and stuff like that. But then I dried out the flakes and added polyfiller, and that basically gives you bootleg sculptor mold, and that's fantastic to build things with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's quite clever. So I think in some ways, I don't know how it is where you are in Malta or for where the people in the chat are, but we're quite lucky with some things in the part of the UK that we live in, and we're not lucky with other things. XPS foam is a nightmare to find. I am intensely jealous of the person who works and gets it for free. But things like filler cost nothing.
Yeah,
they are pretty much giving it away. So it's why I love terrain building. You can create some really interesting pieces and it doesn't have to cost anything really.
Yeah, again, thinking back from when I started in the 90s, It was basically on a teenager's budget, so it's supposed cereal packets and piece of packaging and stuff like that. You don't need to break the bank with this product and that other product. Just
Yeah.
glue stuff together. You'll be okay, mostly.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't inhale
Exactly.
fumes.
I don't know if you or anybody in the chat remember the book that was produced, and it was produced by Citadel or Games Workshop.
How to
And
make
it was-
wargaming terrain? Yeah.
Yeah, 1996, I think
Something
it
like
was,
that. Yeah.
with the red cover with the image of the terrain in the middle. That absolutely changed my life, because I had a copy of that book that was bought for me by my dad or something. And from that book, I actually developed a love of terrain building. And all the stuff in that book is, here's a toilet roll, here's an egg carton.
Yeah, it's pretty much anything a beginner with almost no tools can pick up.
Absolutely. Pair of scissors and some PVA glue.
Yeah. On the other hand, I remember that most of my early learning how to make terrain was just sitting in a club with some guy who also did terrain. It was like, here is how you do it, my young apprentice.
Ah, good. Oh, that's the good stuff. And it beats using books and mugs and things like that any day of the week.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's a brilliant hobby to have. Very cheap, very creative. I have got paint over most of my clothes, though, is the only downside.
That's the thing. I mostly wear black clothes, so it doesn't really show.
Smart. Yeah, I should invest in a painting apron, because that's the only way I'm going to keep myself tidy.
Trash bin equals crafting. Yes,
Totally agree.
the trash bin is a fantastic source for. I mean, to be fair, I think most of my stuff doesn't even get to the trash bin. It's just nope. I'm building something out of that.
Yeah, I really had to strip out some stuff from my terrain building supplies, because I realized that I'd collected so much card and so many random bits of packaging that looked cool that actually I didn't have enough room for the completed projects.
But it's
So
a good
I had
box.
Oh no, I had to chuck it away. Don't get me wrong, I've still got absolutely loads. When we were talking about cable ties earlier and the fantastic forklift and the pallets, I was just thinking, I've only got about 150 cable ties. I wonder if that's enough.
Are you promising to make me some 10mm forklifts on stream, Lewis?
Well, well, crikey, maybe we'll start doing the Nth Level terrain stream. I've already promised to make you some road signs, and I promised to make Pete some sand dunes and an ice wall. So yeah, okay, I'll add that to the list.
Fantastic.
Okay, the DM's craft is saying, I love the painting stage. Yes, that's one thing about one of my favorite bits is when you, not the painting stage, one of my favorite bits is the undercoating stage, when you get to prime them. So suddenly you've got all the various pieces of trash and suddenly they're the same color, and this looks like a thing now.
Starting to come together at that point, isn't it? Definitely, yeah. And I think particularly when the primer has gone down and hopefully it hasn't melted anything.
Yeah.
You've sealed it all in. Then it's all in place and it's ready to go, and that's when the painting comes. And that's definitely kind of my jam. I love scratch building bits of terrain. It's very much, from our perspective, it's very much kind of Lewis's kind of corner of the market. I'd happily pass the buck to him for that, and then maybe when it needs to be painted, it comes to me. That's absolutely fine.
Okay.
But I'm really looking forward to giving my little diorama a go, and hopefully when I come to prime everything, nothing melts. That's normally a very key stage.
Yeah.
Okay, so in case somehow you ended up here and haven't watched the DM's Craft yet, I dropped the link in the chat, and the DM's Craft is possibly the person who we can blame for most of crafting YouTube, most of terrain crafting YouTube.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, we are holding responsible. DM's
Yeah,
Craft made me do it.
there are so many tricks and so many parts of the painting. You know, I love the painting stage as well. And as you say, Karl, that's when you undercoat it, that's when it starts to actually look like a thing. I would put forward that the second best time while working on a terrain project is when you finish doing the base colors and you put a wash on. And I think it was I was watching a lot of Eric's Hobby Workshop, and the
Great
point
guy.
at which, and for a lot of his stuff is really grim dark, and a lot of the stuff that I loved that he did was Necromunda, so it's going to be very moody and very dark. But the point at which you've done all the base colors and you put on like a black or a brown wash that really brings the different things together, that for me is when it really looks like we're well on the way to a finished product now. I think that's a fantastic part of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's when you start to see the last mile kind of thing. Yeah.
The end is in sight.
Yeah, I've recently picked up oil washing, which is something I think I'll definitely be applying to my terrain when I come to make that little diorama. And for me, my favorite bit is drowning something in an oil wash, and then coming in with some white spirit, maybe on a cotton bud or a Q-tip, depending on where you're from, and just removing some of that detail and just peeling that away and coming back to those base coats and stuff that you've done before. And maybe you got some nice gradients going on there on some stonework. Taking that oil away there and just leaving it all kind of transition through at the end, that is deeply satisfying to me.
That's something I've been experimenting with, but I'm still like super like. I'm still really cautious about it. It's like I haven't really committed. Okay, I'm going to do this thing properly, with oil washes and whatever.
Oh, I love an oil wash. We can have a chat about that in your Discord, I think, at great length.
Yeah, oil wash, and also this stuff.
That is
the latex mask. Hang on, where's the label? There you go.
Okay, all right.
So latex mask, which is another thing that I picked up off Eric's Hobby Workshop, which I love, particularly for painting sort of sci-fi and industrial terrain, is to do a sort of brown undercoat, then dry brush on some metallic, cover it up with that stuff before doing your base colors. Just cover up little patches, and then when you've done your base colors, you peel off that latex mask to show the rust coming through the base colors. That stuff, I think, is something that anyone doing modern industrial or sci-fi terrain that cost
from
€5.
From like a scale modeling perspective as well. I'm sure this applies to terrain, but like having that effect is really useful, because it doesn't just simulate the effect of weathering, it's actual weathering, because effectively there is a chip. You have created a difference in texture where you've got your paint layer is now sitting proud of your rusty brown layer, and so when light hits it in the real world, it's going to look like an actual chip, because functionally it is. That works incredible in a scale modeling world, and certainly that's another thing I think I'll have to pinch when I come to do my diorama. So I think I'll have to share some progress pictures of that one on the Discord there, I think, and you can all judge me as I go and tell me where I'm going wrong.
So far I've only used I think salt as a chipping medium. I think I can definitely see how that would be much more controllable than a lump of salt.
I think so many different techniques have their place, because I don't think with this we can say that one is better than the other, because as Ollie said, we're trying to replicate real world things. Maybe with fantasy buildings we're not, but we're trying to replicate what we actually see in the real world. So like using salt will provide a different effect.
It probably a different shape, definitely, rather than
yeah, indeed. And that shape does exist in the real world, but perhaps so for using this stuff, this is really good to simulate where water has been dripping down a surface.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
And has sort of washed paint off and has caused rust streaks, which is a different situation to where something has just rusted uniformly because it's been out in the sun.
Got scratched or what have you.
Exactly. Yeah.
I just love that in the chat that Dungeon Matron has brought it right the way back to questionable crafting materials. We kicked off the stream talking about using teeth.
Yes.
We have officially come full circle. Good job, chat. Well done.
Come on, we're all about questionable crafting materials.
Most questionable material we've all used.
Yeah.
I've used some funky stuff in the time. I use lentils as a basic material. Because I ran out of texture paint, so I mixed some lentils with some brown paint, and that
Oh
worked.
yeah, I forgot
That
about
worked.
that. Yeah.
Well,
I've used. It's right. I've used
Yeah.
wine as a wash before on
Seriously?
models. I ran out of red wine. I ran out of red wash. And
Yeah.
I'm drinking
Yeah.
some Merlot. Dip the paintbrush in. Oh, it worked.
all right, did that work?
It's out.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
It's
varnish
okay.
over it. You can't tell.
I think with regards to questionable materials, we've used pistachio shells. We also had a tea bagging challenge where we basically built stuff out of tea bags.
Wow.
Brilliant. That's good. I make use of tea leaves quite extensively.
Good
Yeah,
idea.
they make great ground scatter and foliage and stuff like that.
Absolutely,
scatter. Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely.
In fact, I don't know if this might not be the best example. I don't know if you're going to be able to see
Okay,
that.
hang on, let me begin that. No, not that one. Here.
I don't know.
There you go.
So my I've just got to say my miniature painting is not very good. I leave the good miniature painting to Ollie.
Thank
But
you.
I don't know if you're going to be able to see this very well because of my camera. Perhaps not. But this basically is just a basing mix that is made mostly of tea leaves that have then been coloured and a bit of sand thrown in as well. So whereas bags of proper flock are always going to be
Consistent.
better exactly, consistent is a good word. However, if you do terrain building on a budget, which is what I do, because that's half the fun for me is to do it for next to no money. Tea leaves and just coloured with cheap acrylic paint is absolutely fine for basing material for my standard of painting anyway.
Oh, okay. Database material is saying the only questionable part of a material is how can I use this?
Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, my garden is an endless source of basic materials for me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Bits of roots and things from bits of plant and fallen bits of branch and tree, and it's incredible.
I mean, even if you take earth, just dry earth, that's plenty. I mean,
I saw a great diorama recently from there's a YouTube channel called Night Shift.
I love that channel.
Oh, it's just my favorite. My cat also likes watching it with me, but I think that's a separate discussion. That's a discussion possibly for another time. But Night Shift makes incredible usage of just stuff from his garden, and it adds so much when you compound it with existing hobby products and you compound it with existing techniques. It adds just an extra layer to whatever it is you're working on, whether it's like groundwork for a diorama or a terrain piece. It adds so much, and I think we looked at some perfect examples of that earlier as well, didn't we? They were just really, really good. I have many ideas I want to apply to my diorama, and I need to start writing some of these down.
Make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Being on here and having a chat with all the people who are in the chat at the moment has really, given me more motivation to get back and do a proper large bit of terrain. I haven't done a large bit of terrain in quite a while, and now that I do have a board that I can use at home, I should do a big ruin or something.
Make it happen.
What I need to do is I need to get my partner to order something that needs to come in a large box with lots of packing material, because we all know that cardboard packing material is the best thing for random shapes. So I'll go out later. Do you need a new TV? Do we need a new? I'm sure we need a new toaster. Something like that.
Some of the best cardboard to use for heavy duty builds is the stuff that comes around household appliances like ovens, fridges, and stuff like that, because that's the really thick double layer stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, love! Look, the fridge is broken. I'm sure we need a new fridge. And here's me saying that it's all about doing it for cheap. So there we go. We're getting a new fridge so that I can do some terrain building.
So get other people to do it. So you go around your parents' place and you're like, "Oh, look, your fridge is broken."
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Well,
just
that's
go door to door at Christmas. So get everyone's packaging materials from it.
That's
yeah.
a really good one. Earthman Brick in the chat just said that pet food boxes can be ideal as well. I would never have thought of that, but they are a bit thicker, aren't they? They're a bit more sort of structural. I'm stealing that as well. That's another brilliant idea.
Mm,
I
mm.
mean, at the end of the day, you can make any cardboard structural by putting supports into it. But if you can start with a thicker material like that, it's always easier.
Yeah.
I'd certainly feel a bit more kind of happy with that. I guess depending on sort of the shape and size of it, what you go for, having that thicker structure in the first place before you then applying sort of braces and things as well. I think I'd feel a lot better about it as well, having something just that much more sturdy.
Yeah, I can see
Cat
that.
litter for flock as well.
That's a classic.
Yeah.
The unused cat litter, that's important.
Yeah.
So you said used cat litter? Okay, I'm
Unused,
writing that
unused,
down as well.
fresh.
No, I'm pretty sure you said used.
It's the rocks in it.
Dryer sheets is coming from Questball Terrain as well. I'm a big fan of painting things, and dryer sheets, and to a lesser extent, although sometimes it does work quite well, wet wipes, when stretched, create really interesting techniques for you to apply filters through with an airbrush.
Yeah, airbrush and spray can both. Yeah.
Yeah, and indeed in spray cans as well. Yeah, it's a very good point. Really, really good sheet. And one of my favorite things I've ever painted was a piece of marble using stretched out wet wipes when dried, and you get a really interesting sort of patterns with them. Where if you start with a lovely sort of a base tone for a marble, like a traditional, maybe like an off-white, like a cool off-white, run some colors through it. Run some yellows, some browny yellows, and some sort of off blacks and things. Changing the shape every now and again, maybe even bringing in a new wet wipe and creating some more textures with that. But the effect is phenomenal. I will never paint marble any other way ever again. So for we looked earlier at a lovely column made with the wine corks there. I was thinking straight away, how could I get that to apply nicely through a wet wipe with an airbrush? If you want to paint it marble, give that a technique a go, maybe, particularly if you've got an airbrush. It's a little bit easier to control than a rattle can, but I'd love to see that column painted. That's really good. I want to make some of those myself.
Okay, let's see. Dungeon Matron is saying, I once saw a disturbing book called Crafting with Children.
Oh no. Is there a chapter dedicated to teeth? Because I think if we've learned anything today.
Okay, and Earthman Brick is saying, the more heavily soiled the cat litter, the less weathering you have to do later.
For a stream that has discussed the application of children's teeth in terrain, I think somehow that actually wins most gross comment of the Well done. Well done.
The other thing about wet wipes and things like that, which quite a few crafters have done, is that it's great for making tents and things like that. Although I tend to use tissue for the same thing, so I don't have them with me. I think they're still in my games bag, but I made some objective markers for Flames of War, which were sort of a broken down and raided camp, with some tents actually made using that method. Just a cocktail stick frame and then tissue or wet wipes
and then
to make a
PVA
tent
on it or something.
PVA on it, and then you just paint it a regular, army drab green, and very, very easy but very thematic objective markers.
And I'm always surprised at how durable it is, even if it's just paper soaked with PVA glue. That's a really tough material.
Absolutely. And what I love actually about building frames for those things out of cocktail sticks is that you can snap them, but they will stay sort of together, so that you can actually make really broken, trampled tents. And the fact that you've broken it a little bit, as long as you don't fully snap it, it will stay together and be quite useful for that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm loving this conversation.
Yeah, terrain building is really just the best fun. And for me, we've been talking about the things that we're doing with the Nth Level and the games that we're making. When we started, I did think that for me, I just want to make games that I can build terrain for. And if I get to roll some dice and have fun with friends as well, then that's a win. That's an extra win.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand it because I think that's the same with most people because we build terrain to play games on. So that's something we always look for.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure, get that for sure.
The game is the bonus. And I do think that it's important to be quite realistic about a project as well, because I mentioned with the large house that I was showing earlier, that was originally going to be a project for a totally different game for D&D that was going to be twice, maybe 3 times the size. And I got through a lot of that project before realizing that actually I was not even halfway done and it was never going to be finished. So let's be a bit more realistic about it. Which is fine as well.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of it, it's like, again, if you're building something for your own entertainment and if it stops being entertaining or if it becomes too much, then there's nothing stopping you from saying, okay, nope, I'm not finishing this. I don't want to finish it.
Yeah.
It's your hobby, it's not your job.
Exactly. And I think for those of us who do build terrain or do particularly play tabletop games, we're not going to call it a pile of shame, but we've all got unfinished projects, and that's absolutely fine. We'll come back to it another time. Are you saying that you don't?
No, I'm saying I do have a lot of them.
Yeah. I was going to say, you might be the only crafter or tabletop games player who doesn't. I used to not have a pile of shame, and then I met Pete, who plays every game under the sun and knows that I have terrible willpower. So he says, I bought a rule book for a new game. It's really cool. And I'll go, all right, not interested. And then he goes, oh, but look at this really cool mechanic it's got. And then suddenly I've bought an entire army. The money has left my account and I've got another 100 minis to paint.
Just do it in 3 weeks like I do. It's easy, mate.
Pete paints quickly. I do not.
It always interests me how Pete and I are the other ends of the painting scale. We both produce minis that look great, but Pete will do an entire army in 3 weeks, whereas I'll spend 3 weeks painting a single miniature.
Oh, well, okay.
I have gone on record and I have done that. The complete polar ends. It's always really interesting to me because I'll be midway through working on a project and people have finished it. And then to the next. The man's output is very impressive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, speed painting is something that I never got I have tried it. I can see what. I was still not particularly fast, but I was faster than when I was not trying to speed paint. The thing is that I didn't enjoy it as much as I would painting anything else. Again, personally, I don't mind playing with unpainted miniatures, so it's okay for me to have unpainted miniatures. But I do enjoy taking. If I decide, okay, I want to paint something, I like to take the time on it.
Be clear, I don't speed paint anything. I just paint things normally, but fast. I'm not like slab chopping or anything like that. I do blends. I do all of that. I just am fair blessed. I have the time to do it. Okay. Like I don't have a commute. I can work my own hours. If I need to paint something, I can do that. So that's why I can do it so quickly.
And you have the motivation as well because you do play a lot more tournaments than the rest of us do. So you need to paint that quickly. But just a thing for the way that we do games, because we play a lot of games by other companies, lots of them. And just so for an example, we got into Oathmark a little while ago, and I'm working on an army for Oathmark at the moment. Really, really enjoying that game. That is fantastic. And it allows me to create this nonsense goblin orc army that I always wanted to. Brilliant. And then a few weeks later, Pete goes, oh, well, I was in our local games club and I picked up a starter copy of Hail Caesar. And I just thought, oh no, how long can I resist this? How long can I go without buying a Hail Caesar army? I didn't even last
48
a week.
hours?
No. It was longer than 48 hours, but it certainly wasn't a week. So now I've got a Hail Caesar army that should be arriving fairly soon, and I'm sure that we'll end up playing a different game in 2 months' time.
It's fine though. Once you've got them, you've got miniatures for any ancient battle game. That's the thing. That's the trick to remember.
That's
You've
true.
not got a Hail Caesar army. You've got an Ancients army that you can use to play Hail Caesar or To the Strongest or DBA or literally any Ancients game you want to play.
Although
That's the way
if,
of thinking about it.
What about hit Nth Level game Primordial Steel?
You
well,
could
I
also do
could
that.
use them for
Exactly.
Nth Level
Yes.
game Primordial Steel.
If I hadn't based them
I've
all
done
on 40
I've
mils.
done the plug for the hour.
Oh dear.
Oh, man.
I know. We're not going for historical accuracy though, because I think Peter's got Persia, and I will have Sumerians, which will be a historical difference of about 2,000 years.
About
Who's
2,000
keeping
years.
count?
Yeah, exactly. Who cares, right? They're just very, very old Sumerians.
But one guy on Facebook will care.
Yeah.
That one guy who told Ollie that his incredibly accurate tank didn't have the front step. That guy will
Oh
care.
yeah. So I did a model of Tiger 131, which we're going to get into some very specific terrain tonight, pun intended, with today's audience in the chat. But there's Tiger 131 is the only running Tiger left in the world, to my knowledge. I think it is the only one that still runs. It's at Bovington Tank Museum in the UK. I saw it and I was enamored with it, and I thought, great, I'm going to build a model of this for Tank Duel Arcade. We saw it briefly on the chat earlier. It's very dark in here at the moment, so apologies for that. But it is a very faithful recreation of the tank. I've taken reference pictures of it in real life. I made sure that every chip, every dent, every tiny part of the very subtle camouflage on it was as perfect as it could possibly be. I posted pictures of it online to my own Instagram. And
Okay,
it had hundreds and hundreds of comments on it. And the first one I will never forget was, the front step is missing. No. Yeah, and now I can't look at
I
it
don't
ever
think
again.
the Instagram link came up, but if you want to throw it in the
Ooh,
Discord as well.
I've put it. I'll put it in the Discord as well. I did put it on the YouTube chat. Didn't.
Oh, thank you
Okay.
very much for doing all the management for me tonight. It'll be a little ways down. I think I haven't updated that one in a little while. Maybe we can dig that one up in a bit.
In the meantime, here's Lawrence with
Ooh.
more a dryer sheet spider webs.
Oh, that's a dryer sheet.
Oh, for
Okay.
spider webs. That's
Yeah.
so good, isn't it?
Very good job.
Okay,
That's another
so
one I'm
let's
going to
see.
steal.
Where do you
It's very spider-based terrain and very
Yeah.
spider-based miniatures.
We're having a spider and teeth themed evening tonight, aren't we? I think it's the-
My
favourite
favorite. Yeah.
Okay, so where do you put the
It's in the YouTube chat, and I put it in your Discord as well.
okay,
Where in the Discord did it go?
In the showing off bit, I think that's the.
Ah,
bit
okay,
we're
that's fine.
using. Show off. There you go. There's a link to Instagram.
Okay, 1 sec. As well, that's a lovely looking tank. Let me just bring that up.
I hope this is worth the wait. Oh, there you go. Yeah, there's the link to that's the original
Oh, check
Instagram
that
If you go
post.
to
Yeah.
Instagram, you should,
Okay, I'll just share the link in the chat as well, because I don't think you can paste things there, but here it is.
Very kind. Thank you. Of all the things I thought we'd be talking about tonight, the front step missing from my model, my 158 scale Tiger 131 is not one of them, but I'm glad it's come up.
Yeah, yeah, military modelers tend to become very particular about this sort of detail.
So this is actually on the subject of terrain making and diorama making. That miniature there, Tiger 131, is something that I am interested in expanding into a little diorama. After all, Tank Duel Arcade is literally about a tank that fights another tank, and Tiger 131 famously appeared in a Hollywood movie called Fury, where it played the enemy tiger towards the end of the film that Brad Pitt and co come across. I thought, wouldn't that be wonderful to make a little diorama of that? I've got the model of 131 already. I've got a Sherman off to the side here, which is in production. I thought, wouldn't it be great to make a little diorama of that little fight scene there? But unfortunately, if you look at where this battle was filmed, it's just a flat, muddy field. There's not really a great deal of. There's not like any broken fencing or any bits of foliage sticking through that could maybe make particularly interesting. So I think I might go off kilter and maybe not copy the film, but rather come up with something that's a bit more visually appealing for a diorama. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because
As long as it's got the right number of steps, you're all right.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, it has no steps, so it's obviously a 0 out of 10 model. That one.
Yeah, then you're going to find someone who's like, but French mud doesn't have this shade of brown.
Actually, in the summer of 1944, the mud was a much more saturated color.
So I saw, I can't remember where it was. It was on a YouTube channel, I think. I saw a great quote the other day where they're like, "Oh, that guy who's going to correct you with history, he's just one Osprey book ahead of you." That's all it is.
That's fantastic.
Oh, good.
Yeah, well, I actually hadn't looked at that Instagram post in quite a while because it just reminds me of the guy who told me that the step was missing. But
Come on, it's a hilarious anecdote.
It is.
Gives you flashbacks.
Yes, remember, kids, they are out there.
I'm going to be having tonight. I think my dreams are going to be the missing step from my model and
The step.
and animated spiders and teeth.
Yeah.
Are all going to be themes of my nightmares tonight. So thanks for that.
Okay. Campaign terrain, not to complain, but the balls are in the wrong torque.
Dear. I've made it now, haven't I?
Oh, yes. So I know you do different challenges for your terrain. I know there's dangerous and water. So I wonder if has that been one, or is it going to be one?
We do have a challenge slash pile, which where suggestions are, suggestions go to die sometimes. But yeah, I think teeth will probably go in the slash pile. I'm hoping it never comes up again. Because it will be stuff of nightmares.
Oh God, absolutely. Save that for Halloween. Save that for Halloween.
Oh no, that's probably a bit too mild for Halloween. Okay. Owen says, Primordial Steel was my excuse to get into historical models without having to worry about silly things like accuracy. Yeah, I can see that. Just paint models, have fun. It's
if your shade of red is slightly different, or you want Romans that were blue instead of red, who's to say no? Because they're not Romans; they're from the Lupine Empire, which was thousands of years ago. Also, there are giant werewolves. So
But I will say there are actually quite a lot of legions that were blue instead of red. Also, nobody knows what the shade of red was anyway, because everybody from then is dead. All you've got is a little scribble for some guy in a margin that says, "Oh, these were red," but
what shade of red?
No, at least you can see it with your own eyes. It's a thing now. Even when we don't know, for example. When we went to Bovington, we saw it. We all went to the tank museum because we're sad like that. They literally said that they've the World War I tanks. They'd recreated the color scheme from a sculpture because nobody knows what color they're actually painted because everybody who saw them in real life has passed away now, and there's no surviving examples where the paint's still intact.
They're quite grey in the video I've seen.
Yeah, black and white. Even.
Yeah, how do you like that? Huh?
This is the thing, again, all the photos and videos are black and white. So even as far, as close as then, things are lost to the mists of time. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I mean, unless you're making a museum piece or something.
Even then, 9% of the time they're guessing. Yeah. Don't look at paleontology. They just make stuff up all the time.
Yeah, I mean, with the feathered dinosaurs and stuff like that, yeah?
Yeah. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Just carry on.
Okay, but guys, what color were the dinosaurs? Well, the dinosaurs were clearly fluorescent pink.
Well, I thought so too, which is why actually.
I will
they're actually transparent. They were see-through.
Because I'm a huge nerd, I will actually say we do actually know what color dinosaurs were because we have found perfectly preserved fragments of skin.
All right.
So they're basically what you would imagine an animal living in the jungle is. They're brown. That's it.
Is the perfectly preserved bits of skin crafting challenge going to be coming up next week?
That's to go with the teeth. That's to go with the
Let's
teeth.
go with the teeth. Oh no. Oh dear.
This is really grim because I've got them on the shelf over there somewhere. We bought them for a Halloween costume, but you can buy sheets of replica human skin on Amazon.
Okay.
Oh, oh no, it's not Halloween.
Teeth.
It's for tattoo artists, to be clear. They like practice
okay.
on them.
Oh right, okay.
We used them like the wife's Halloween costume, which we were she was the severed head from Reanimator, and I was Herbert West.
I wonder what kind of
Wild.
texture that fake skin has, because there's I think of quite a few crafting projects, so that might be quite good.
It doesn't
I think
feel
of
like
that
skin.
sort of-
It's quite rubbery. It doesn't feel
Does
like
it?
skin.
Does it? Okay, interesting. I was thinking of that that wonderful mimic chest we looked at earlier. That kind of like
I don't think
you
that-
could blend.
I don't think that needs skin. I think that's a bit
wood
much.
to fleshy kind of thing. Hmm. There you go.
Yeah, the stream is going places.
It's going weird, yeah.
No, it's not particularly weird. I mean, even compared to one of our normal Wednesday hangouts, but it's definitely going places.
It's all going a bit sideways.
Possibly on some watch lists, but
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's
They won't catch me.
Banks is an international man of mystery. No one's catching him.
He's calling from a safe house right now.
Okay, guys.
We've never met him in real life.
Oh no, really?
He's a figment of our imaginations.
Livestream, yeah.
Sorry, Karl, I interrupted him.
Sorry, guys. I mean, like, I was going to say I'm loving this conversation, but I really have to go to work tomorrow, so I probably have to start winding down the stream now.
Yeah, likewise.
Guys, thank you so
This
much
is
for
fun,
joining
very
us today. It was a really fun conversation, and I
Really fun.
will keep an eye out
Same.
for your upcoming games.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Yeah,
you
it's
so
been-
much for inviting us on.
It was a pleasure, guys. I mean, like, and anytime you guys want to come back on, just drop me a line, okay?
Yeah,
Mm.
perfect.
We'll do. Yeah, hopefully we'll have some more things we can show off next time as well. That'd be good, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And
Sounds good.
thanks to everyone in the chat for joining us. Hope you have a great week, and catch you next Sunday. Bye. Thanks
Thanks
again,
all.
guys.
Bye.
So-
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.